to crack down on the dissent. That's according to the Norway-based group Iran Human Rights. Analyst Bob McMahon, with the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations, says the UN Human Rights Council meeting will be closely watched by Iranians taking to the streets.
They've lashed out in many different directions, including against ethnic minorities. Kurds have taken a lot of brunt. It's a question of what is the staying power of the protests themselves, and will it resemble ultimately the 79 protests that led to the Islamic Revolution? You're hearing very respected Iranian experts saying, hold on and watch what's going on. And I think it's events like this UN session that give sustenance to the protesters.
And that meeting will consider a resolution authored by Germany and Iceland calling for the creation of a high-level international investigation to probe atrocities committed during the protests. It is not clear whether it has sufficient backing to be adopted. The main news again, the Ukrainian government says there have been widespread power cuts across the country after a series of Russian military strikes on critical energy infrastructure. President Biden is pledging full federal government support to the authorities in Virginia after Tuesday night's massacre at a Walmart left 6 people dead plus the gunman. And the White House has condemned Wednesday's attacks on the outskirts of Jerusalem that killed at least 1 and injured 14 others. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
The nation's quadriplegics immobilized on Washington in support of stem cell research, and a Penn State t-shirt is awkwardly looked away from. And now for the weekly feature your fragile, susceptible mind already has your lips salivating for. This is The Onion Week in Review. Sources reported today that 10-year-old Brandon Thomas, who is currently homesick at his friend Kevin's sleepover, needs to just tough it the fuck out.
I don't feel like playing Xbox right now.
The pathetic little bitch, who claims he just doesn't feel like eating any birthday cake or joining in any activities with his friends, frankly needs to grow a pair because his parents only live 10 minutes away, for Christ's sake. Here's what the whiny pansy had to say for himself.
I wasn't crying. It's just allergies. I want to go home.
What a f***ing wuss. In other news, a voicemail from mom is deleted 3 words in, and a man with nice eyes is blown. All right, now off with you. I can't have you seeing me like this. For more, visit theonion.com/newsbeat.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program here. Join us. The number, you want to do that, 603-283-6160. At 603-283-6160. You take control of the airwaves here on Free Talk Live, and it is the Thanksgiving Eve edition of the show. We, by the way, are here throughout the holidays. So Thanksgiving Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, Christmas, Christmas Eve. Free Talk Live is here for every single show, unless, something drastic happens, like the FBI smashing in our windows and, trying to destroy people's lives. That sometimes will take us off the air for a day or so. But for the most part, in the last decade plus, Free Talk Live has been here every single night during the holidays. So hopefully you will join us. And in fact, some radio stations join us on holidays as well because, they need some time off. So their talk show hosts take time off. Program director puts Free Talk Live in. So if you're listening to us on stations like Kiva that are out there that are running us on a weekday for, normally you don't hear us, welcome aboard. We are live, and you can, of course, take control of the airwaves, as we like to say. In the news, well, there's, as usual, a bunch of stuff, but I had this opinion piece from MSN.com. Ian Bogost, the author over there, he is writing about the supposed end of social media. And joining me in the studio tonight
is Nikki.
Hey, Nikki.
Hello.
It's Ian here. We are doing the Thanksgiving Eve edition of the show. And, you're probably our youngest regular co-host.
Yeah,
you're in your
probably.
You're in your mid-20s, early mid-20s, somewhere in that range. And, whenever you look at social media trends, usually the young people are the ones that are leading those trends.
Yeah, usually.
Right? So people that are still on Facebook are like way behind the ball. That they're saying that Facebook's audience is older. It's skewing older as younger people have dropped off in the last roughly decade and have moved over to other platforms like TikTok, for instance. You hear a lot about TikTok. Snapchat maybe is still kind of a thing.
Yeah, Snapchat's still a thing.
Instagram, I mean, Instagram's kind of kept it going to some extent. Is there anything like new that I don't know about? Is there some
there probably is.
You don't even know about
it, I'm not really in the know. I'm still on Facebook, so I guess
you really?
I am,
wow.
yeah.
Okay.
And I've tried to delete my Facebook several times just because I hate Facebook.
You tried to.
I do. Yeah, and that's the worst part, right? So I delete it. I do delete it, and then I end up getting back on.
Okay.
For like because of my business or family or whatever. But
now you do like medical stuff. You're a nurse by trade. You are a doula, I believe, as well. Yep. And so how does Facebook help you with your business? I know that some local business owners swear that it helps bring people through the front door.
Yeah, I've gotten several clients off of Facebook.
Wow.
So.
Oh, man, that is tough.
Yeah, so it's like marketing, and I don't pay them money because if you give them money for advertising, I heard it works very well, but I just refuse. I'm like, I can't give them any more money.
Me neither. I think we tried that for a short period of time at one point many years ago. I think we did Google AdWords and also the Facebook advertising, and I just came to the same conclusion. It's like, you know what? I just don't want to give these people money.
Yeah, so, morally, it's not worth it.
Yeah. So, if you want to jump into the conversation, it's about social media. The article is called "We're Witnessing the End of Social Media." So, Bogos at MSN.com says it's over. Facebook is in decline. Twitter is in chaos. In fact, I think they just laid off. He mentions it here that Facebook laid off 11,000 people.
Wow.
Recently.
I didn't even know I don't know why I didn't think they employed that many people, but
they must employ much more than that, right?
Oh,
because
of course.
that was only a fraction of their workforce. Twitter had like 7,500 when Musk took over at the beginning of this month, and he has slashed and burned at least 50%. Some say as many as 75% of the employees at Twitter. Of course, they were losing money hand over fist at Twitter to the tune of $4 million a day. It was not a sustainable business in any way, shape, or form. It was basically an activism empire. There was no revenue beyond.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, they have advertisers, but it wasn't enough money to actually pay their staff. So,
and I'm wondering what all those people are doing because
now they're looking for a job.
Well, yeah.
You mean what they were doing prior to this?
Yeah.
They literally were being paid in some cases to not come to work at Twitter. They had a policy to where if you didn't feel like coming to work, you didn't have to.
Like I've heard about all of this, but I literally thought that was all a joke.
No, that's what like former employees, people that had worked there, had said. So it never felt more, he says, plausible that the age of social media might end, and soon. Now that we've washed up on this unexpected shore, we can look back at the shipwreck that left us here with fresh eyes. Perhaps we can find some relief. Social media was never a natural way to work, play, and socialize, though it did become second nature. The practice evolved via a weird mutation, one so subtle that it was difficult to spot happening in the moment. The shift began 20 years ago or so when networked computers became sufficiently ubiquitous that people began to use them to build and manage relationships. Social networking had its problems, collecting friends instead of, being friendly with them, for example. But they were modest compared with what followed. Slowly and without fanfare, around the end of the aughts, social media took its place. The change was almost invisible, but it had enormous consequences. Instead of facilitating the modest use of existing connections, largely for offline life to, for instance, organize a birthday party, social software turned those connections into a latent broadcast channel. All at once, billions of people saw themselves as celebrities, pundits, and tastemakers. And I remember the time when Facebook was actually useful for doing an event. Yeah. So this is how all the Free Staters up here in New Hampshire, for listeners that are new to the program, some of our hosts are part of this migration of libertarian activists here to New Hampshire, and it's called the Free State Project. And one of the ways that those people got in touch in the earliest days was we had internet forums, and we had like Yahoo groups. I don't know if this is probably before your time.
Yeah, I've never even heard of that.
So a Yahoo group or a Google group, as Google got into it at some point, was essentially an email chain or an email group where you would have 25 or 50 or however many people in this email list essentially, and you'd send an email to one email address and would automatically go to all of those people. And so that was the way a lot of people communicated. Forums were also very popular, where again you would have these sort of threaded communications with different topics and all that. And Facebook came in at some point, replaced MySpace, and really brought some new things to the table. They kind of wrapped up all these features in one. They had the ability to do kind of forum-y sort of posts. They also had this event feature where you could say, hey, this weekend we're doing a get-together in Keene at this restaurant, and come on out, or we're going to do this activism thing in Manchester or whatever. And then people would indicate that they were going to go to those events. And at some point, Facebook just disemboweled that feature from their whole.
I think they still have
site.
that.
Yeah, they have it, but it
doesn't seem to work as well as it used to.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So, one of the things that happened was they would cripple the features on it eventually. They said, oh, well, it used to have a select all button. So if you had 100, 200, 500 friends or whatever, you could just hit the select all button. And then it would send invites to all of your friends.
Yeah, that way you don't have to go through 500 people and click them. Yeah,
they got rid of that. Why? I don't know. They got rid of that feature, and there was for a while there was this hack. You could get a plugin for your browser that would sort of hack that feature back in. But eventually, they managed to defeat that somehow, and it ended up being that I, on my Facebook account, ended up never seeing invites. I would be told oh, well, I invited you to this event. It's they didn't give me a notification of the invite. I didn't see it, and at that time, I was addicted. Right, I was clicking on the little light on the top where it shows you your notifications. And I almost never saw event invites. So they basically crippled the platform for kind of one of the most useful aspects of it, which was actually organizing real life get-togethers. Well, once that was gone, it became just a total drama magnet, because that's where a lot of people, I'm sure it still is.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people fight over a lot of petty stuff that they would never fight about in real life. So is it the end of social media? Are we witnessing the beginning of the end of it? This is Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Free Talk Live.
I have a license. That means you're protected. That's nonsense. Just because somebody has a license doesn't mean anything about their business acumen. It doesn't mean anything about their ability to satisfy their customers.
It essentially means that they paid the state money.
And jump through the hoops. Yep.
And filled out some paperwork.
Exactly. And that's all that the license means. But yet it has this aura of legitimacy to it. Oh, it's a license. And they paid some money to the state, and so therefore they must be a good company. It's absurd.
And absolutely. And what it does is it depletes the pool of people out there that would be doing business in that particular way. You know, that just can't get up the money to get the license. They can't get up the money to get the fancy vans and all that other stuff that's involved in being a contractor or whatever. I'm thinking of plumbers right now, I guess. And different plumbing jobs require different levels of skill. When you're talking about just a regular thing, why can't you have a handyman guy come in and do it? Why does he have to be licensed?
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here on this Thanksgiving Eve edition of the show. We're talking about, is it the end of social media or the beginning of the end of social media? Here tonight, it's Ian.
The Reverend Captain Kickass has joined.
And Nikki.
Captain Kickass here on an unusual midweek appearance.
Wow. Here I come to save the day. I'm going to white knight this bitch. Somebody was like, hey, we got an opening. And I'm like, I'll be right there.
Yeah, and you made it here fast for somebody that lives a half hour away.
Well, we just turned on the captain light, like
the captain signal illuminated.
Like Batman.
The bat signal.
Yeah, the sky was illuminated with the captain signal, whatever that is. It's just a heavy metal sign.
That'd be awesome.
And, I show up.
So welcome. We're going to go back to the phones here, or to the phones rather. And by the way, I do want to say thanks to some of our great sponsors like Bitcoin.com. If you are interested in learning about cryptocurrency, because despite what the mainstream media is saying to you, it ain't over yet. And in fact, cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash is here to stay. It doesn't matter about FTX or whatever other exchange.
The only thing these bastards can regulate, and by bastards I mean government, is the exchanges. They can't regulate cryptocurrency. So all of these people who are like, oh, you see it, it's like you don't understand cryptocurrency at all. Nope. You don't understand the decentralized nature of the currency. And if you think that because somebody who ran an exchange ripped off a bunch of people that cryptocurrency is going to die, I got news for you. Not going to happen.
Exchanges have died before, and Bitcoin continues on. So you really ought to understand, though, crypto. You really should take the time. Go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page, and go through at least one of the videos, the introductory videos there that you'll find, and that will help you understand, get some of the basic concepts like decentralization down. And then you can feel confident about purchasing cryptocurrency and also holding the cryptocurrency in your own wallet that you have exclusive control over instead of giving it to somebody else, like one of these exchanges where bad things can happen to it. So head over to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started, and we go to Major Payne on the line in Michigan. Go ahead, Major.
Welcome, Captain. An unexpected pleasure.
But
indeed, sir.
Sorry, that's the Major's what do you call it? His slogan.
Oh, it's the theft of the inner tube, and I'm going to end up on virgin wool if you'll be so kind to let me do the roundabout here. the theft of words. So, oh, geez, it's craziness. How
okay,
did
focus.
What was you talking about to start with? I lost my...
We were talking about the end of social media, or at least that is what the an article at MSN is proclaiming.
So it made me call in. I'm looking at one of these stupid 50-cent bumper stickers I bought, and it says, "Welcome to the Internet. Now you can meet millions of losers." And it just tickled my elmo. I had to buy it. And now you guys are talking about it. So, first book, good God almighty.
So you're celebrating the end of social media, it sounds like. You think this is a good thing.
I think it's poison.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a strong argument for that.
I don't know. Like, social media has done some pretty great things, whether you know it or not, particularly for the freedom-oriented community, right? And that is to say that prior to the Internet, there were people who existed on planet Earth. I know, I was one of them, who had thoughts of like, well, why does this happen and why does that happen, and well, how come why is there a conflict of interest with like who pays both the prosecutor, the judge, and the policeman, right? Why do they all draw their check from the same place, right? Like, you know, these types of thoughts. And like, you would ask these questions amongst your friends and your family, and they just look at you like you're crazy. And so the Internet has done some very useful things by allowing people to realize that they were part of a much larger community.
Yeah, but did we need to have social media for that to happen? I mean,
I think
is there a line between forums and the like? We were just talking about email lists and forums.
Well, I consider forums social media. Emails, no. Forums, yes.
Okay, so... Go ahead.
This hasn't changed since the Monopoly game started. Daddy Warbucks is still running the bank.
I have no idea what that has to do with social media. Bank. Are you referring to referring to the fact that Facebook are...
Bank. I mean,
you're getting a little too out there for me, Major. Are you referring to the fact that Facebook is a mega corporation owned by a billionaire?
I'm referring to the fact that all large, relevant media is controlled.
That much is true. Thank you, Major, for the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you. The number is 603-283-6160.
I was reading a thing about the people who are upset with Elon Musk buying the Twitter and taking over, that they're moving to Mastodon. It's not. I know we've covered it here on Free Talk Live. A couple of hosts have talked about it. I just read an article today. It was an interview with the inventor
of Mastodon.
Yeah, but it was like it was a lefty pub. I think Wired or something did an interview with him. And I was reading through it, and I was like, you know, this is great. This is excellent exposure. This will hopefully this will educate people on the value of decentralization and like sort of turn them towards further decentralization projects, cryptocurrency, for example.
And we have Elon Musk to thank for this.
Well, do we have him to thank for this? Okay, sure.
I mean, his actions spurred the leftists to all of a sudden start publicizing the competition, which is Mastodon.
Right. But what I'm hoping for is that this is an educational opportunity for social media active people to learn the value of decentralization without having to sort of come through cryptocurrency. Up until now, cryptocurrency is really the only provable decentralized value system. You know, the blockchain, you know, technical people are all about this kind of stuff right now, but the common folk really are just kind of you say these words, we don't, but now they're just upset with Twitter, and they're like, oh, we're going to go over to this alternative, and then they discover why it's better. Like, to me, that's an educational opportunity that can't be repeated.
Yeah. Mastodon has its ups and its downs. I'll say that. As somebody who's operating a Mastodon server, we have our own. It's social.freetalklive.com. You can try it out for yourself. Go over there, and you have the freedom, more of a freedom to express yourself there than you will on places like Twitter and Facebook. That's for sure. And I'm sure we'll come back around to Mastodon. But the story that I've got here is talking about kind of how social media got its start. And this person in this article at MSN, he says that he thinks that social media started at the end of the aughts. Now, for listeners that don't know, that's like 2009, 2008. Those years, that decade, are considered the aughts.
What do they cite as the precipice.
That's the thing. He's not real clear.
The genesis.
He's not real clear on what exactly changed.
Because you and I know, Ian, like bulletin boards.
Yes.
Were the genesis of social media.
You're talking about in the early 90s, the late 80s, these weren't even internet-connected systems. They were just phone lines hooked up to computers with modems, and you could dial in from your computer and exchange things like messages with one another on this system.
Or broadcast to whoever belonged to that board.
Yeah. So, I think it is a good question of when did this interaction with other humans on the internet become social media? Because a lot of people would not say it happened until like Facebook, basically. But the number here is 603-283-6160, or maybe MySpace. What's your definition? It's Free Talk Live.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The Ukrainian government says there have been widespread power cuts across the country after a series of Russian military strikes on critical energy infrastructure. Large parts of the capital Kyiv and the cities of Odessa in the Black Sea and Lviv in the west of the country are without power, and the Deputy Prime Minister of neighbouring Moldova says his country has also been affected. FSN's Sergio Olmos is on deck for us in Kyiv.
There's been power outages all throughout the city. Millions of people are out of electricity tonight. There is, in Kyiv, the capital, a lack of running water. Because there is so much damage to the energy infrastructure, there is no internet in some places, there is no lights, there is no running water, and people are having to cope with that.
And of course there is no heat in a country where winter advances every single day. Putting heat on the Russians, the European Parliament today. In a non-binding resolution, it branded Russia a state sponsor of terrorism amid reports of war crimes and attacks on civilian targets. In other news, President Biden is pledging full federal government support to the authorities in Virginia after Tuesday night's massacre in a Walmart store. An employee opened fire shortly after 10 p.m. last night, killing 6 before turning the gun on himself. Mark Zaleski is the police chief in the Virginia town of Chesapeake.
The first officers arrived on scene within 2 minutes at 10:14 and entered the store approximately 2 minutes later at 10:16, and the scene was declared safe by 11:20 p.m.
One of Europe's leading meat suppliers is to build a new £100 million factory in Britain to meet the country's surging demand for bacon. The announcement comes as surveys show the cost of living crisis is leading more people in the UK to consume pork. From FSN's London bureau, Julia Chapman with more.
The plans announced by Danish Crown Group detail a new 100% renewable energy-powered facility. UK pork consumption is now above pre-pandemic levels, with the cost of living crisis fueling demand for cheaper meats, such as sausages and bacon. On average, Britons eat over 3 kilos of bacon a year, far more than any other European country. The Danish company is keen to take advantage of the increased demand for their products in the UK. Danish Crown's investment comes amid significant challenges. Its chief executive warned that small and medium-sized companies are struggling with the added bureaucratic issues presented by Brexit. He described the crazy red tape of an additional 33,000 documents a year to trade in Britain. Julia Chapman, London.
The White House has condemned Wednesday's attacks on the outskirts of Jerusalem that killed at least 1 person and injured 14 others. Authorities in Israel suspect bombs caused explosions at 2 bus stops in the city. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open here at the Thanksgiving Eve edition of the show. You can join us at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160.
Can I tell my Thanksgiving joke?
I would love to hear that, sure.
So you can use it now before Thanksgiving. You can be like, are you going to eat enough turkey? or when
no,
it's
I
over.
was expecting.
When it's over, it's like, did you eat enough turkey?
Funnier than it should be, Captain. I like it.
It's the William Shatner pause that makes it funny.
Yeah, it's all about the timing. So Ala Loca, thank you, by the way, for becoming a Free Talk Live supporter. She is a gold level AMPS member. You can join AMPS like Ala Loca has done over at amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com. You can get signed up for as little as $5 a month. Ala Loca's doing 10. Thank you for stepping up and helping advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. If you like what we do and you want to get access to some benefits, some perks like, for instance, the AMP Only podcast, which has our full radio show archives without any recorded commercials, you can join AMPS. It is our Patreon. You can do that over at amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. So I have this story that is kind of going to take us into the history of the social media and look at, is it the end? Have we witnessed the beginning of the end of social media? Because a lot of people would say, no, social media, Elon Musk taking over Twitter, he's breathing new life into it. There's been more signups, for instance, I think there in the last 2 weeks or something than recent months.
I have noticed a change in Twitter. Mm-hmm. And I think I mentioned this on Beard Talk Live at some point. Somehow I clicked on the right number and quantity of things, and somehow Twitter started feeding me bikini girls holding freshly caught fish.
Is this a positive change?
Well, so they no longer serve me bikini girls in freshly caught fish.
Oh.
So whatever happened, this was before, right at the precipice of, right before Elon finally actually took over Twitter. Mm-hmm. Like, I did something, I don't know what it was, I clicked on the right things, and the algorithm was like, hey, we're going to serve you up. He needs bikini girls holding freshly caught fish. Now, mind you, I'm not a fisherman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't think you were against it, though.
I have but I like bikini girls, so I'm like, okay, whatever. So, but like, out of nowhere, this happened, and I told a couple people about it, and then, like, it's gone. And it was right as Elon took over. So weird. I'm being served up different stuff. And I'm not that active on Twitter, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not, like, a power user. I scroll a bunch. Occasionally, I'll like a thing. I rarely retweet anything, right? So I'm not a power user. I have very few followers. I follow, like, very few people by comparison to some of these mega people who 40,000 followers, and they're, like, celebrating. They're like, since the change, I acquired, like, 15,000 new followers over the weekend. And I'm like, I'll just be over here with my, like, 400 people or whatever, So, but they're serving me up a whole different palette of stuff now than they were before, and I have to attribute it to the changes.
Is it better now?
I mean,
or just different?
I don't necessarily miss the freshly caught fish bikini girls, but it's certainly different. I'm getting more content. It's actually probably better, I think.
Okay.
Because I'm getting more text-based content. I'm getting more things with links to other sources. Whereas, like on Facebook, for example, if you're not linking to a Facebook link, that's a low priority for Facebook.
Yeah, it doesn't get shared around
like if it's a YouTube or a Twitter link or whatever. Unless it's a photo. Facebook loves photos. So if you send a photo of something on another social media thing, Facebook will promote that as long as there's not an accompanying link to that other company. But Twitter is just like, it seems to be a little more fast and loose now, a little more Wild West. And I'm okay with that.
All right. So back to the story here from MSN. They say a global broadcast network where anyone can say anything to anyone else as often as possible, and where such people have come to think they deserve such a capacity, or even that withholding it amounts to censorship or oppression. That's such a terrible idea from the outset. And I got to agree with that sentiment and we've seen this, for instance, where the conservatives, when, for the most part, it seems to be like liberal tech guru types that are in charge of these platforms, with the exception of Elon Musk, who's more of a middle-of-the-road character. But conservatives were complaining for a while because they were being repressed on these platforms.
Censored.
And they didn't see the answer as, hey, let's go build our own platform, although some of them did, to their credit. But the bulk of the opinion was, well, we need a government law. This is our right. We have a right to be able to speak on this private platform. This is a public square, or whatever, quote unquote, and they needed a law to ensure their right of access, and that people were pushing for that.
And I totally disagree with that Facebook or Twitter is a right of the public, and it's just turning social media into something it's not.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically, it's a hobby, okay? Social media is the thing you spend your free time on. And you get a little bit of fun out of it or whatever. You have your little spats with people, or you do whatever it is you do there, and then you turn it off and you get back to doing, hopefully, productive things. Some people, it consumes all of their time, and
for some
they
people,
don't do
though,
anything productive.
Social media is their job.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
and
true.
they manage many social media accounts for many
social media managers,
different people, and so this is a career for them. So
true,
they have to be on it and on top of it.
I get that.
In it and that kind of a thing. But like, I know, to answer the question that the article seems to be asking, is this the end of social media?
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely not, because social media precedes the internet.
What are you talking about?
Predates the internet.
You're talking about like a bulletin board in the center of downtown where people can post.
Let's go even further back.
things.
Let's go to CB radio.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
CB radio. Like, the similarities between CB radio
and the internet,
having a handle and an internet and a chat group and
true.
all these things, like, that all happened with CB radio. So, like, it's just a different flavor of this. What it is human beings desire to communicate en masse.
That's true.
We desire to broadcast. We desire to be, accepted or argued with, or, any of these things that happen both on Citizen Band Radio, much less the internet. We desire for all these things to happen. It's just a question of what is the format, right? If the internet died tomorrow, all of these things that happen on the internet and on CB radio would happen, just in a different place. Probably, maybe they'd go back to CB radio for a while till they figured out some other way to do it.
I wonder if there was as much drama on CB radio back in the day. There must have been if there were enough people, right?
I have a small bit of experience. One of my parental units owned a base station.
Yes, yeah.
Right?
I had one as a kid.
It'd be like you running a Mastodon server, right? It's kind of the same thing. You just have this big, powerful antenna.
Yep.
You can, quote, step on,
the little
unquote,
guys.
other people
Yeah.
and, like, sort of override them with your broadcast.
Oh, I remember.
And so, but these are things that, still happen today. Just, it's a different flavor. It's a different venue. It's a different method.
He says it's a terrible idea that's entirely and completely bound up with the concept of social media itself. Systems erected and used exclusively to deliver an endless stream of content. But now perhaps it can also end. The possible downfall of Facebook, Twitter, and others is an opportunity not to shift to some equivalent platform, but to embrace their ruination, something previously unthinkable. A long time ago, many social networks walked the earth. 6 Degrees launched in 1997. I've never even heard of it. He says, named after a Pulitzer-nominated play based on a psychological experiment, it shut down soon after the dot-com crash of 2000. The world wasn't ready yet. Friendster arose from its ashes in 2002.
Oh, wow, Friendster.
I've heard of it, but I don't know anything about it.
In at least a decade.
Followed by MySpace and LinkedIn the next year, then HI5 and Facebook in 2004, the latter for students at select colleges and universities. Remember that? That was how Facebook started.
Yep.
That year also saw the arrival of Orkut, made and operated by Google. Bebo launched in 2005. Eventually, both AOL and Amazon would own it. Google Buzz and Google Plus were born and then killed.
Google Plus, you had to have an invitation to join.
It was garbage.
And then it turned into crap.
Yeah.
I mean, it
never was anything
crap,
great.
Yeah.
You've probably heard of some of these, but before Facebook was everywhere, many of these services were immensely popular. Content sharing sites also acted as de facto social networks, allowing people to see material posted mostly by people they knew or knew of, rather than from across the entire world. Flickr, the photo sharing site, was one. YouTube, which was once seen as a Flickr for video, was another. Blogs and blog-like services such as Tumblr raced alongside them, hosting musing seen by few and engaged by fewer. In 2008, the Dutch media theorist Geert Lovink published a book about blogs and social networks whose title summarized their average reach: 0 comments. More coming up here in moments. You can join the show. Is it the end of social media? It's Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. And apparently there's been another mass shooting, by the way. If we get a chance, we can talk about it.
People are killing people from Massachusetts?
I don't know where this one happened, but it was a Walmart in this case.
I'm pretty sure it was in Colorado.
No. Well, maybe this Walmart was in Colorado, but there was a gay club shooting in Colorado.
Oh,
we talked about
maybe
that
I'm
earlier.
conflating the two.
There's literally been 2 mass shootings this week, at least in the United States.
I saw a stat while I was having dinner this evening that said over 600 mass shootings have occurred in the U.S. this year. And then I thought to myself that still the body count pales in comparison to the body count of the largest mass shooter in all of history, government.
Do we know that this isn't the government necessarily?
Well, there are a lot of theories about these mass shooters. You know, are they brainwashed by the government? Are they, CIA patsies or whatever? If you want to join the show, the phones are open, 603-283-6160. The social media question is at the end, the beginning of the end of social media. That's what author over at MSN.com is asking.
The headline that I have from BBC.com says, U.S. Walmart shooting, manager kills 6 at Virginia supermarket.
Yeah, and then killed himself, apparently.
Manager.
Yeah. So you can bring up whatever you want here on Free Talk Live, and Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bullion Max, by the way. If you are interested in getting some of the most stable assets in recorded history, go to bullionmax.com. And you want to talk about a great opportunity because it's gift-giving season,
It is.
What better gift to give loved ones than gold and or silver? And you can start for yourself with the Silver Starter Kit. You only get one of these per household, so you can't really do gift giving with the Silver Starter Kit. This is kind of just for you, unless you want to give it to somebody in your household, because there's only one per household. You get it at employee pricing. It's 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products plus a free gold back. And it's hard to give away the one gold back you have. I'll tell you that.
And really who would want to? I mean, those are so cool.
Yeah, they're so awesome.
But, does that mean... if I know 5 households, can I go to their website and purchase a gift for household 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5?
No, well, I mean, not the Silver Starter Kit. You would have to do that. That's per household, so the person in that household would need to sign up for an account, that kind of thing.
All right.
So go and get yours if you haven't yet. If you're interested in getting into silver and gold, this is a great starter. It's the Silver Starter Kit at bullionmax.com/FTL. That's bullionmax.com/FTL. You can buy it without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals. And by the way, they have a huge inventory of other stuff you can look at. Shipped fully insured directly to your home. It's bullionmax.com/FTL. The social media obsession that people have, is it finally winding down? The story at MSN.com. The author here, Ian Bogost, has kind of gotten into a brief history of some of the social media sites that have come and gone. So many of them don't exist anymore, or if they do, they're a shadow of their former selves.
I was thinking somebody needs to invent MySpace-dodon.
There you go. Bring back MySpace as an independent, federated system.
MySpace had some things right. I'm not saying that they were great at everything.
You mean where you could design your own page?
You could have your own page. Yeah. It actually taught you a valuable skill, a little bit of HTML coding, and you could embed things into your page and that kind of. But if you married, but what they didn't have, which is what all social medias have now, at least the Twitters and the MySpaces, the big ones, LinkedIn, what they all have now is algorithms. MySpace had none of that. It was literally all organic.
I kind of like that, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's so if you could marry, sort of the best parts of MySpace with sort of the best parts of Mastodon, I think you would have a winning combination that a lot of people might migrate to.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Or is it too late? Or is it too late? Is this the end? Is TikTok the culmination, the apex of what social media can become? Is it all downhill from here?
I do not get on. I see TikTok videos from time to time when they're cross-posted on other social media.
Sure.
I do not subscribe to TikTok in any way. I don't have an account. I don't go there. I don't have the app.
It's never hooked you.
You've
never really said, I've got to be there for this.
I'm not that guy.
No, I can't. No, I can't do TikTok. People send me TikToks all the time. People are obsessed with it. In Instagram.
Over other social media?
No, you can still link
on Facebook. Usually, it's usually on Facebook.
You can still go to TikTok users page and see their content without actually having an account.
Right.
But you can't really scroll and look around. You need to make an account if you want to do that. Yeah. Right. So people send it to me usually on Facebook, but I just can't. Oh no, I remember what I was going to say. Instagram has kind of adopted the TikTok style. So Instagram does Reels now.
So
and
is
what
YouTube.
I've noticed, So what I've noticed is people will do, it's the same stuff that's on TikTok. So I think a lot of people will post the same stuff on Instagram and TikTok and kind of cross-post.
Sure.
But they use the same type of music, the same dances. It's pretty much the same. So that was something that was very interesting for me because I like Instagram. And I'll kind of, I'll watch some of the reels. Some of them are funny, but I get sick of it real quick. I can't, like some people on TikTok, they talk about this like black hole they get sucked into where they will literally be scrolling through TikTok for 5 hours.
Oh my God.
And then look up at the clock and be like, oh my goodness, is it already like 4 o'clock in the morning? I can't imagine doing that. It's crazy.
But that's like video games do that to people, right? Like TikTok isn't the first thing to do this.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And like this is a people problem, not a technology problem.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I'm also still upset that Instagram in a free market society would be a cocaine vending machine.
Someday, Captain.
You can do that. I
someday.
refuse to frequent or even deliberately go to Instagram because it is falsely named.
Just of the name. So, I've heard that as far as young people using TikTok, we were commenting on this earlier, that this is where a lot of young people have left Facebook and they're now on TikTok. Yeah. Supposedly, they even use it as a search engine. Like, that's how much time they spend on TikTok.
I don't even understand how they would.
How do you use TikTok?
You search for stuff, I guess, and there's videos. There's videos about
I guess that does make sense because I know a lot of people learn stuff. Like, my mom's on TikTok. And she'll tell me something. It'll be it'll be like a random zodiac fact, right? Like astrology. And I'm like, did you learn that on TikTok? She's like, oh yeah, I learned all this stuff on TikTok. So people are using it as an educational platform too. Like
Some people get their news through TikTok.
Yeah, news.
That says something about TikTok though. It's penetrated the the family market, or at least the motherly market in your case.
Oh yeah. I know a lot of like women that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s
right,
that love TikTok.
And,
so
and
it's
a lot
kind
of those
funny.
people like barely get a grip on like Facebook.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It kind of like skipped like the middle generations. So it's kind of like the Gen Z, like the younger people. Yeah. Well,
Gen Z.
it
Gen
seems
X
like under millennials. Because I don't see
they're
a lot
not going to TikTok?
I don't see a lot of millennials on TikTok. I think it's the younger crowd.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then kind of the older crowd. But it hasn't really gotten like Gen X or the millennials, really.
So to go back into the sort of review of social media from MSN, today people refer to all of these services and more as social media, a name so familiar that it has ceased to bear meaning. But 2 decades ago, that term didn't exist. Many of these sites framed themselves as part of a Web 2.0 revolution in so-called user-generated content, offering easy-to-use, easily adopted tools on websites and then mobile apps. They were built for creating and sharing quote-unquote content, a term that had previously meant satisfied when pronounced differently. But at the time, and for years, these offerings were framed as social networks, or more often, social network services. So these SNSs proliferated, a joke acronym arose, YASN, or yet another social network. These things were everywhere, like dandelions in springtime. As the original name suggested, social networking involved connecting, not publishing. By connecting your personal network of trusted contacts, or strong ties, as sociologists called them, to others' such networks via weak ties, you could surface a larger network of trusted contacts of trusted contacts. LinkedIn promised to make job searching and business networking possible by traversing the connections of your connections. Friendster did so for personal relationships, Facebook for college mates, and so on. The whole idea of social networks was networking, building or deepening relationships mostly with the people you knew. How and why that deepening happened was largely left to the users to decide. That changed when social networking became social media around 2009, between the introduction of the smartphone and the launch of Instagram. Instead of connection, forging latent ties to people and organizations we would mostly ignore, social media offered platforms through which people could publish content as widely as possible, well beyond their networks of immediate contacts. And I will add that what we saw happen with Facebook was they decided they were going to monetize the publishing, meaning that there was a time when if you had 1,000 people that were your followers and you made that post, they'd all see it. Right? And this went back to that sort of, not algorithm, but the content, just sort of the direct feed.
Early YouTube did the same thing.
Yes. And then Facebook said, yeah, why don't we start telling people we're going to charge them to reach their network? And that was, I think, the beginning of the end for Facebook, at least. There's more coming up here. Hour number 2 is on the way. Is this the beginning of the end for social media? You can share your thoughts on Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The Ukrainian government says there have been widespread power cuts across the country after a series of Russian military strikes on critical energy infrastructure. Large parts of the capital Kyiv and the cities of Odessa in the Black Sea and Lviv in the west of the country are without power, and the Deputy Prime Minister of neighbouring Moldova says his country has also been affected. FSN's Sergio Olmos is on deck for us in Kyiv.
There's been power outages all throughout the city. Millions of people are out of electricity tonight. There is, in Kyiv, the capital, a lack of running water because there is so much damage to the energy infrastructure. There is no internet in some places. There is no lights. There is no running water, and people are having to cope with that.
And of course, there is no heat in a country where winter advances every single day. Putting heat on the Russians, the European Parliament today. In a non-binding resolution, it branded Russia a state sponsor of terrorism amid reports of war crimes and attacks on civilian targets. In other news, President Biden is pledging full federal government support to the authorities in Virginia after Tuesday night's massacre in a Walmart store. An employee opened fire shortly after 10 p.m. last night, killing 6 before turning the gun on himself. Mark Zaleski is the police chief in the Virginia town of Chesapeake.
The first officers arrived on scene within 2 minutes at 10:14 and entered the store approximately 2 minutes later at 10:16, and the scene was declared safe by 11:20 p.m.
One of Europe's leading meat suppliers is to build a new £100 million factory in Britain to meet the country's surging demand for bacon. The announcement comes as surveys show the cost of living crisis is leading more people in the UK to consume pork. From FSN's London bureau, Julia Chapman with more.
The plans announced by Danish Crown Group detail a new 100% renewable energy-powered facility. UK pork consumption is now above pre-pandemic levels, with the cost of living crisis fueling demand for cheaper meats, such as sausages and bacon. On average, Britons eat over 3 kilos of bacon a year, far more than any other European country. The Danish company is keen to take advantage of the increased demand for their products in the UK. Danish Crown Crown's investment comes amid significant challenges. Its chief executive warned that small and medium-sized companies are struggling with the added bureaucratic issues presented by Brexit. He described the crazy red tape of an additional 33,000 documents a year to trade in Britain. Julia Chapman, London.
The White House has condemned Wednesday's attacks on the outskirts of Jerusalem that killed at least one person and injured 14 others. Authorities in Israel suspect bombs caused explosions at 2 bus stops in the city. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Looking ahead now to Thursday's meeting of the UN Human Rights Council, which is due to address the violent unrest in Iran and reports of continuing human rights abuses by the country's security forces. Demonstrations are going into their 3rd month following the death in custody of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, arrested by the country's hated morality police for failing to wear her hijab correctly. At least 378 people, including 47 children, have been killed as the regime seeks to crack down on the dissent. That's according to the Norway-based group Iran Human Rights. Analyst Bob McMahon, with the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations, says the UN Human Rights Council meeting will be closely watched by Iranians taking to the streets.
They've lashed out in many different directions, including against ethnic minorities. Kurds have taken a lot of brunt. It's a question of what is the staying power of the protests themselves, and will it resemble ultimately the 79 protests that led to the Islamic Revolution? You're hearing very respected Iranian experts saying, hold on and watch what's going on. And I think it's events like this UN session that give sustenance to the protesters.
And that meeting will consider a resolution authored by Germany and Iceland calling for the creation of a high-level international investigation to probe atrocities committed during the protests. It is not clear whether it has sufficient backing to be adopted. The main news again, the Ukrainian government says there have been widespread power cuts across the country after a series of Russian military strikes on critical energy infrastructure. President Biden is pledging full federal government support to the authorities in Virginia after Tuesday night's massacre at a Walmart left 6 people dead plus the gunman. And the White House has condemned Wednesday's attacks on the outskirts of Jerusalem that killed at least 1 and injured 14 others. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Tensions in Washington, D.C. reached a new high yesterday as several dozen members of Congress took a class of visiting school children hostage, barricaded themselves inside the Capitol Rotunda, and demanded $12 trillion in cash. The children were rounded up at gunpoint, whereupon the House Speaker informed negotiators that one child would die every hour unless their demands were met. Here now a brief video one of the students was able to send out from inside the Capitol.
Nobody move, you're all gonna die! This kid's got a phone.
Historians across the country politely reminded Americans this week to quickly check and see what has happened in the past before making any big decisions.
Just take any book with history in it and then quickly skim through it to see what decisions in the past turned out to be bad. And then once you've pinpointed them, simply don't make those same decisions again. Because if a bad thing happened again, you see, that would be very bad indeed, wouldn't it?
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the second hour of this Thanksgiving Eve edition of the program. Welcome to it. Gobble, gobble. And I do want to say thanks, by the way, a special shout out to Kiva, one of our normally weekend affiliates in Albuquerque on the FM band. They're with us tonight. And
really?
They'll have us on tomorrow night as well because the normal afternoon.
The KIVA?
Yep, and Friday. So yeah, all for the rest of this week, we're going to be on KIVA in Albuquerque. Because the normal host of their afternoon show, he's the program director, he's taking some time off, so he just popped us on the air. So welcome.
Cool. Happy to fill in.
Yeah, if you're listening to us live, and you are, if you're in Albuquerque, feel free to jump into the discussion. We've been talking about social media as this concept. Is it over? Is the beginning of the end? Is that what we're witnessing now? Or is it just a bump in the road and we're going to see it sprawl into other things?
I think we're seeing evolution.
Mm-hmm.
I think there have been some people who have attempted to create some we'll call it data-centric things. Like, do you remember a thing called MaidSafe?
Oh, yeah. We had the one of the spokespeople for that on the show multiple times.
Massive Array Internet Disk Secure Access for Everyone, which is a big acronym. MAID, M-A-I-D, SAFE, S-A-F-E, a big acronym. What their concept was is they just wanted to give data permissions back to the individuals. They wanted to sort of encapsulate your personal data into one bubble, and then you would have to give voluntary permission to any other thing you shared your personal data with. And you could be like, I only want to share my name. I only want to share my address. I only want to share my phone number. I don't want to share any
that
of
would
these
be
things.
nice.
Right? Like they would put the control back into. And so, like, those ideas.
I thought it was also supposed to be like a decentralized internet where hosting could be done through the whole like a crypto network, basically.
Right. So these ideas, and they're not the first one. That's just the one I remember off the top of my head. There's been several other organizations attempting to do similar things over the course of time that have, maybe they're still in development, or maybe they failed and they're morphing into something else.
Did it ever come out, MaidSafe?
I don't think it ever actualized as a thing. But I think some of those people still have those ideas and are morphing into other places. And I think what we're seeing, of course, is the evolution of individual data on the internet. It's going to continue along this social media path for a while, right? People are going to invent new ways or new features or be more competitive with the features that they currently offer or don't offer. Like Musk has said, we're going to offer long-form video streaming like YouTube, right? So, they're going to start cutting into each other's methods or competition, right? They're going to start competing more with each other. And so as these large social media companies homogenize, if you will, and start offering similar services to each other, well, that's just going to open up an opportunity for these all to morph back into one of these decentralized sort of data management companies where you subscribe to a service for a fee, and then you voluntarily decide how much and what data you want shared with what companies. And I think that's a good thing in the long term. In the short term, it's going to be kind of chaos. I think we're beyond the days of seeing like a new social media company sort of come out of nowhere and everybody mass exodus like they did from MySpace to Facebook. I don't think we're going to see anything like that again. I think that was just sort of a thing about the beginning of the internet, the beginning of what's known now as social media, that mass exodus thing. I think it'll happen in the ways that it's happening now, which is somebody gets a little mad at Elon for buying Twitter, and so they're looking for alternatives. And they found Mastodon. Yeah. Great. Far out, solid, and right on, please. And like explore more of that. Why is that a better idea than Twitter? Right. And for the people who are moving, even if you haven't moved and you're considering moving, or if you just want to open another channel for social media, maybe you're a content producer, maybe you're a musician, an actor, whatever it is that you're doing on social media, you want to promote yourself more, you should be on all of the social medias, at least that are relevant to you. And so if you're looking into joining Mastodon, find out why it's better. Find out what is different about Mastodon versus Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and, all the big ones.
Well, the other thing you want to do if you're going to join Mastodon is make sure you pick the right server for you, because there's some people who've been complaining. I've seen posts popping up on Twitter of people who are bemoaning the fact that they joined some Mastodon server and got banned because they had an opinion that the administrator of the server didn't like. And they're trying to make it sound like, this is all Mastodon. Mastodon's bad. No,
they probably don't understand how it works.
Right. They did not go through the education process before joining.
Well, because you don't have to do that with most social medias, right? When you sign up on, you probably should look into it, but people can just make a Facebook account and then that's it.
Again, the educational part is what I'm talking about here. This is the evolution.
Yep.
It's about time people who are on social media, who have maybe they've been on Facebook forever since its inception, and they don't know any other social media or how to interact. Well, time to learn. This is evolution. Yep. Evolution requires learning.
By the way, MaidSafe is still around. It's apparently in an alpha state right now, which for listeners that don't know, that means it's a very early release.
I'm surprised. I've heard nothing about it for, a decade.
Their current website is safenetwork.tech if you're interested in going and learning more about that. So what we were looking at here is the this article at MSN that's kind of talking about the end of social media, and he's going into kind of the history of social media. What was it before social media? Well, we had social networking, and I think he makes an interesting distinction there. Because we were just, Captain, you were saying, well, all of this stuff was social media, going all the way back to the bulletin board systems in the day.
CB radio.
CB radio was certainly a social interaction. There's no doubt about it. But I think the distinction he's making, at least in this story, is that social media is more focused on the platform onto which you can cast, if you will, broadcast your media content, whether it be video, audio, or whatever, to a larger audience of people you don't know, versus social networking, which was you're kind of interacting with people that you do know.
Although you're in the club.
But that wasn't true necessarily with CB or with bulletin board systems. In many cases, you didn't know those people. So I don't know. It's a little blurry, but he does make kind of an interesting argument that social media, he says, didn't start until around 2009 when people started getting smartphones. Instagram started, and he says that people were forging ties to people that we would mostly ignore. Social media offered platforms through which people could publish content as widely as possible beyond their networks of immediate contacts. Social media turned you, me, and everyone into broadcasters, if aspirational ones. The results have been disastrous, but also highly pleasurable, not to mention massively profitable, a catastrophic combination. Well, it wasn't profitable for Twitter, at least, because they haven't made a dime.
Apparently not, and I was
ever.
actually very surprised to hear that.
Yeah, because it's a working platform, and it's been around for so long, you would figure that they'd made some money.
Somebody's funding it.
But well, that's the thing. Someone's funding it, but they're not making money on it.
And let's not confuse Twitter not making a profit with people on Twitter not making a profit.
Well,
there are plenty of people on Twitter who are businesses who pay for advertising, who promote their products and services to you depending on the algorithm and what things you click, So I'm probably going to get solicited for Bikini Fish Girls again after talking tonight on the radio about it. But there are people, that's what gives Twitter its value. Not necessarily that it's made a profit, but that other people, other businesses make profit while on Twitter.
The terms social network and social media are used interchangeably, but they shouldn't be. A social network is an idle, inactive system, a Rolodex of contacts, a notebook of sales targets, a yearbook of possible soulmates. But social media is active, hyperactive, really, spewing material across those networks instead of leaving them alone until needed. A 2003 paper published in Enterprise Information Systems made an early case that drives the point home. The authors proposed social media as a system in which users participate in information exchange. The network, which had previously been used to establish and maintain relationships, becomes reinterpreted as a channel through which to broadcast. And that kind of describes CB, right? There, you literally were broadcasting to an unknown audience.
I don't really see how... I understand they've said a lot of words, but I still don't really see the difference between social network versus social media.
For me, it kind of does make sense how they described it. Previously, Facebook and Instagram was kind of more like a social network where it's pretty much people you know and you're sharing with them, whereas social media is YouTube, Instagram, where anyone can follow you and you're kind of just, it's more public. You're
think about
broadcasting to the world rather than just your family and friends.
And when you signed up for Facebook back in the day, it was like, oh, where are all my friends and family, right? I went through the phase of trying to find my old classmates and things like that, and then I was like, why did I do that? More coming up here in moments. The number 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
gold and silver. You can own the most stable assets in recorded history with BullionMax.com. Buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals shipped fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live can get you their silver starter kit at employee pricing. Just go to BullionMax.com/FTL. It includes 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products plus a free gold bag. This offer is limited to 1 per household, so get yours now. Go to BullionMax.com/FTL.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to MyMagicMud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. MyMagicMud.com, FTL20.
8 great shopping tips. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks, and I am real impressed with all the ways to save that you are sending. Gabriella writes, I began buying fold-top sandwich bags to use with food items that don't need to be airtight. Even a sandwich at work won't spoil since you'll eat it within 3 or 4 hours. And fold-top bags are much less expensive than those Ziploc-type bags. And she whipped up a tasty ceviche using a can of sardines. Much easier to work with than fresh fish, shrimp, or crab meat, she says, and much less expensive. She writes, who would have thought it would be a hit with my picky son? So then she tried canned salmon. You can read her entire post on my blog, where you can share how you are coping. Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, and you can join the show here. The number, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian the Captain, Nikki, here tonight.
Present.
On this Thanksgiving Eve edition of the show. Welcome to it. We are here live, as we will be throughout the holidays. So, Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day.
Tomorrow, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we're here.
Proper.
We're here every single day. So, join us online anytime, of course, at freetalklive.com. We've been talking a lot about social media tonight, and we got our own site. It's a Mastodon site. You can go check it out at social.freetalklive.com. You can sign up for an account there. You do need to fill out a one questionnaire thing where you have to say why you want to join, basically. Put in some reference to Free Talk Live, and we'll get you in. It's no problem. Because there's a bunch of spammers that are trying to get into the site, and that's how we keep them out, because they don't know who we are.
You want a name drop, you'd be like, Captain Kickass sent me.
Totally fine. That would work great. And then you'll get in there, and there's one of the cool things about this Mastodon is there's actually a bunch of different clients you can use, a bunch of different apps that you can download. So if you don't like app A, you can try app B, C, and D and find one that's kind of got the look that you like or the color scheme or whatever. It's pretty cool because it's open source. Social.freetalklive.com. Let's go to the phones to the fun. You can call in and talk about anything you want, by the way. It doesn't have to be about social media, although we've been looking at the question of whether or not social media is coming to an end. Is it the beginning of that end right now? Let's go to the phones, though. You can bring up anything with Jacksonville caller on the line here. I'm sorry, I forgot to write your name down, dude. Go ahead. What's your name?
No problem. I'm your publishing house owner. I wanted to call in and talk to you guys about private property. Also, one of the advertisers that who appears to be supporting the stream, and I've looked at their website. It's porcupinerealestate.com, I believe.
Yeah, sure. Mark Warden.
And I kind of wanted to comment real quick too on the social media thing, because social media is never going to go away. We've always had social media. We've had an exhibit in some of the most famous museums around the United States where people used to make posters, and this was their form of social media. Sometimes they just used text on the posters, and then they print out many of them with the printing press many, many years ago. And so even if we have to go back to that because we've been banished off every platform, that's fine. We're still going to do it.
Well, that's a good point. I actually brought that up earlier when the captain was talking about older forms of social media. He brought up CB radio, and I was saying, well, what about people posting in the old town square? You go up to a cork board and you post the party, or you post the gathering, or whatever that you're going to have. Let people know about it.
To the caller's point, even when I was doing the band thing out on the West Coast, yes, we had social media, as many accounts as we could possibly fathom to manage ourselves, but we also had groups in our cell phone, like a list in our cell phone that were like, people who always come to our shows.
You'd message them,
and we'd
directly.
message them specifically in advance of everybody else. It was sort of pre-Patreon stuff, right? Like, these are our super fans. We're going to make sure we communicate with them.
They'll come out.
And that kind of a thing. But we also did handbills. We did posters. There was a website called, I think, Poster Giant or something like that, where you could take an image and upload it, and it would divide it evenly into 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, and you could print it out and assemble it at, like, the venue you were going to play. So you would have like a 5-foot by 5-foot poster on their wall. It was sweet, man.
That's pretty cool.
And so, but you don't ignore the analog because you have digital. You need to combine them both as a strategy if that's what you're trying to promote. If you're trying to promote your business or yourself or your music or whatever it is, you have to encompass all of it.
Anything else, caller?
Yeah, I mean, I've got so much for you guys, especially on this life, liberty, property thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not positive that this is the right advertiser that you guys are talking about, but this is a similar advertiser to many other groups that I've seen in the United States. I'm personally a professional who has published in the multifamily industry for many years for some of the biggest publications out there, like Move.com, Realtor.com, which used to be owned by Home Store. And so I'm very familiar with this industry, and I've helped to publish for REITs, which is a conglomeration of money that runs these different large multifamily facilities.
Okay.
And the interesting thing that I'm finding here is that on their site and on many of these sites, it talks about property and land and investment and life and liberty. And those are all things that we all want, right? These are things that are just.
Well, we don't all want that. I mean, some people out there really don't want freedom at all. They love being controlled, and they love being told what to do. But the Porcupine Real Estate, for listeners that aren't familiar, it's a longtime sponsor here on Free Talk Live. Mark Warden, he's a Free State Project early mover, and he runs this business that helps people who want to migrate, the libertarian migration here to New Hampshire. He helps them get connected with available properties. That's what he does.
He helped me, actually, when I was looking for property. He came all the way out to Keene. He's based, not in
Manchester.
Keene, Manchester. So he drove an hour-ish, hour plus away to come and help me look at a property, and then was like, hey, look, I don't come out here very often. Can I hand you off to my associate here, a local person? And the local person was kick-ass, helped me out. She was great. So, Mark Warden.
Just to clarify, that's what they do. They help facilitate migration of libertarian activists here to New Hampshire. Anyway, go ahead.
Right, and on their website it says that as well. It very clearly, and you're right. There's people that don't even want life. They're pro-death for some reason. They want our children to be aborted and all kinds of weird things. There's people with Stockholm syndrome, of course, where they worship their oppressors.
Sure.
They believe.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't want those people here. They should stay far away.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cult, right? These are people who believe something different than the rest of the population. But for most of us, we believe in life, liberty, and property, and we want our own private property, right? We want to be able to have our own land that we can do with as we see fit, harassment-free. And probably that's what you were looking for when you had him come out and show you some different properties that you could either invest in or purchase for your own or whatever it might
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the dream, right? I mean, of course, we all have governments to deal with which want to use violence against you if you don't pay them for their property tax extraction. So what are you leading at here? I'm not really sure where you're going.
Well, my end goal here is to inform everyone that when you buy up large multifamily facilities, like if you buy up a big apartment complex, you may have the best intentions of providing people with some kind of reasonable housing. And we have apartments all around where I'm at here in Florida as well. Some of them do contact me back when I ask them basic questions. Some of them don't. But none of them have a reasonable way of life. You know, they have all these guest policies where you can't have guests over for more than a couple hours or maybe more than a couple days, or there's certain places they have to park and they can't be too loud during this time or that time, or you can't have family over.
Well, it sucks having to manage people. I mean,
I was about to say that kind of makes sense why they would have some forms of rules and regulations.
Yeah, hang on. I don't know. Again, I'm not really clear what the thrust of the call is, but I am curious to find out where he's going with this.
Let's find out.
Because I wouldn't want to take on an apartment complex. That to me sounds like an absolute nightmare of having to deal with people. It's enough to just have, a couple of properties with people renting, because renters can be real problematic at times, and man, nothing's worse than dealing with bad renters. More coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The Ukrainian government says there have been widespread power cuts across the country after a series of Russian military strikes on critical energy infrastructure. Large parts of the capital Kyiv and the cities of Odessa in the Black Sea and Lviv in the west of the country are without power, and the Deputy Prime Minister of neighbouring Moldova says his country has also been affected. FSN's Sergio Olmos is on deck for us in Kyiv.
There's been power outages all throughout the city. Millions of people are out of electricity tonight. There is, in Kyiv, the capital, a lack of running water. Because there is so much damage to the energy infrastructure, there is no internet in some places, there is no lights, there is no running water, and people are having to cope with that.
And of course, there is no heat in a country where winter advances every single day. Putting heat on the Russians, the European Parliament today. In a non-binding resolution, it branded Russia a state sponsor of terrorism amid reports of war crimes and attacks on civilian targets. In other news, President Biden is pledging full federal government support to the authorities in Virginia after Tuesday night's massacre in a Walmart store. An employee opened fire shortly after 10 p.m. last night, killing 6 before turning the gun on himself. Mark Zaleski is the police chief in the Virginia town of Chesapeake.
The first officers arrived on scene within 2 minutes at 10:14 and entered the store approximately 2 minutes later at 10:16, and the scene was declared safe by 11:20 p.m.
One of Europe's leading meat suppliers is to build a new £100 million factory in Britain to meet the country's surging demand for bacon. The announcement comes as surveys show the cost of living crisis is leading more people in the UK to consume pork. From FSN's London bureau, Julia Chapman with more.
The plans announced by Danish Crown Group detail a new 100% renewable energy-powered facility. UK pork consumption is now above pre-pandemic levels, with the cost of living crisis fueling demand for cheaper meats, such as sausages and bacon. On average, Britons eat over 3 kilos of bacon a year, far more than any other European country. The Danish company is keen to take advantage of the increased demand for their products in the UK. Danish Crown's investment comes amid significant challenges. Its chief executive warned that small and medium-sized companies are struggling with the added bureaucratic issues presented by Brexit. He described the crazy red tape of an additional 33,000 documents a year to trade in Britain. Julia Chapman, London.
The White House has condemned Wednesday's attacks on the outskirts of Jerusalem that killed at least one person and injured 14 others. Authorities in Israel suspect bombs caused explosions at 2 bus stops in the city. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. The phones are open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Thanksgiving Eve. We're here live. Phones are open and you can bring up absolutely anything. We were talking about social media, and I think there's still some more to say about that. What's the difference between social networking and social media? Is there one? And is it all going to come to an end? Or will it be changing into something that we haven't seen before? With you here tonight, it's Ian. Oh, sorry, try that again.
I've been canceled.
Captain.
The Reverend Captain Kickass is here.
And Nikki.
Let's go back to the phones, though, because we have Gregory on the line in Florida. He's a guy that's working, it sounds like, in the real estate business. He's been involved in the purchase of multifamily homes and apartment buildings and things like that. And he was kind of getting into his opinion about having these and operating them and some of the, what I'm guessing is going to be the frustrations of it. You were kind of going over, Gregory. Welcome back to Free Talk Live. You were just kind of getting into some of the difficulties of living on these places, but what about managing them? I'm kind of not really sure where you're going with this, so go ahead.
Right, and I'm sorry if it's a little bit confusing. This is a complicated issue, and I'm really a publisher. I've been publishing different properties, both in the multifamily and in just the basic residential.
What does publishing a property mean?
But I am very aware of it, and I know it's a complex topic. What I'm really responding to is the advertising that's coming out from Porcupine Real Estate and other similar groups that are pushing things like liberty, life, and property, which I think most people would want if they're, it all sounded all with logic.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that, but what we're doing is we're also pushing mostly multifamily investment properties. And I'm seeing that where I'm at here as well. This is just like social media, because when you're doing social media, you want to own your own social media. You don't want to just rent some social media and then have it deactivated,
sure.
all your contacts removed, all
yeah,
your
for sure.
You know what I mean? And you want that same thing with your property. And
Mm-hmm.
so you don't want to have an apartment where you spend 5 years paying for all this apartment stuff for years.
Well, yeah, but for some people, having an apartment is the right thing to do, right? Like they don't want to settle down in a certain place. They maybe aren't sure where they want to put roots down.
I mean, not to mention having money, being able to qualify for a mortgage if you need to go through the bank.
Saving for your down payment.
Or some people, there's a lot that goes into homeownership.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt.
The whole property. I mean, it's
things
a lot.
break and you got to pay for it.
Yeah,
and if
sometimes it's nice to be for some people. They like the ease of just paying rent, living somewhere, and having their landlord take care of all of the rest.
And if you want to walk away as a renter, once that lease is out, you can walk away from a
way
problem.
easier to walk away from a rental.
So I don't know, Greg. There's ups and downs to both of these sides,
Well, these are all arguments that people have made for many years to push rental properties, and they make sense. I mean, I've been a renter myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've rented properties all over the United States and Mexico, and I understand the reason why people rent properties. But really, if someone has the opportunity to own a property instead of renting a property, they're going to own the property. They're not going to rent it, even if they want less to deal with and less whatever. If they have a house, they can just hire someone else to manage it. They can just hire someone else to mow it and clean it and whatever they want, whenever they want to. And if they rent a place,
and you can even take like an existing property that you own, if it's a multifamily, and you move out or whatever, you can turn that over to a management company.
Yeah, I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah, and they'll do all the things. And so I have a question for you, and that is, where is the sweet spot with regards to multifamily properties? Because like my personal goal is I want to own, I don't know, 2 or 3, 2, maybe 3 unit properties, duplexes, triplexes, that kind of a thing. And then, when I hit 65, I want to be able to turn them over to a property management company where they deal with all the crap, right? The renting, the re-renting, the collecting of the rent, the mowing, the snow plowing, if something breaks, they call the plumber, that kind of a thing. But I want those properties to sort of be my post-retirement income. So is that the sweet spot? Is there a better strategy for somebody like me?
Okay, my argument is going to be that these apartment communities, these giant mega apartments that are going up everywhere, all over North America, are not only harming our just basic lifestyle and our ability to live with our families, but it's keeping people from having a lifelong investment that they can then pass down to their future generations. And it's really keeping us from being attached to something that we can be proud of.
I do get the point you're making, because I do, and it goes hand in hand with the city living, right? So we have these big cities. Everyone wants to live in the city because, that's where the jobs are. That's where the hustle and the bustle is. So in order to cram all of these people in the cities, we need to put up big apartment buildings. And even in more rural areas, we're seeing big apartment buildings. And it kind of does give a sort of disconnect to the land. So like, say if you're renting and there's maybe only like 3 or 4 units, you can kind of use your property a little bit more, right? You kind of just share the outside space. Maybe you can have a shared garden. But in these massive apartment buildings where there's hundreds of people in one building, you can't really do that. And it's more just...
You got some crazy guy living above you stomping on the floor, or somebody's having sex on the other side of you.
And I can kind of see how there's that disconnect, and people get stuck in that where... A lot of people, if you're working like a minimum wage job, you are never going to be able to afford a mortgage. It's just so hard to save up and be able to afford to buy your own house.
Well, thank the government for that, right?
Exactly.
Because of all of their inflation and taxes.
Stealing a fourth of people's paycheck. I mean,
it's kind of weird, though, because as a single dude, one income, right, I own a multifamily property that I also own or occupy. And so... within the context of lifestyle, my lifestyle really hasn't changed, right? And that is to say, I live in an apartment. Yes, I own the property. I have a tenant. I have a neighbor, right? I still have to worry about all the things like being respectful to each other and, that kind of a thing. Now I'm on the hook for like mowing the lawn and getting the driveway shoveled in the winter. But like I was kind of on the hook for that anyway in some of the apartments I lived in. So it's really not that different outside of the paperwork and the responsibility. Like I had a plumbing incident that I had to fork out some big money to take care of, because this is what happens when you own a home.
Which would have happened if you owned a single family home probably anyway.
Right.
It's just now at least you have a little bit of money coming in. Hey, thank you, Gregory, for the call tonight. I do appreciate it. And happy Thanksgiving to you. The number here is 603-283-6160. He didn't really answer your question, but I guess that wasn't the point.
No, but I'd like to talk to that guy a little bit more.
That wasn't the point of his call, I guess.
7 to 10, Monday through Friday, or 7 days a week, sorry.
And I just like to clarify, my understanding of Porcupine Real Estate, because he brought them up a couple times, is not that they're trying to sell apartment complexes. Like
they sell all property. I mean, it's a real estate company.
Right.
So if you want a multifamily, they'll sell you a multifamily.
Right. If you want a single
they'll help
family,
you
they'll
with
sell-
whatever you need. But
Exactly.
I'm assuming most people that are moving to New Hampshire are just looking for single families. They just want a place to put their kids and their dog,
They helped a guy I know who lived out of state, purchased just land. And he's been piece by piece, like, okay, I got to get the septic done. Okay, I got to get a well drilled. Okay, I got to
doing it himself.
Right.
Huh?
Just going through it a piece at a time to save on the financing, so he doesn't have to pay one big chunk all up front. Porcupine Real Estate was key in helping him find this property.
Yeah.
They're doing what you're saying, Nikki. They're connecting people with the properties they're looking for, and they are aware that a lot of people who are coming here, if you're selling a house in California, you got good money. I mean, if, in an area like San Francisco or Oakland or something like that, I mean, you got a bunch of money coming in. Seattle, probably the same thing. Yeah. You got a bunch of money coming in. You can afford to get something a little bit nicer here for less money than what you're leaving.
A drummer I know, when I purchased my property, I sent him the listing, and he was like, dude, for the price of my house, I could buy 3 of those.
Get a mansion.
And I'm like, why do you think I moved?
Right.
Like, this is one of the reasons.
And so if you can afford something like a multifamily, and you're willing to deal with having those close by neighbors like you have to do when you live in an owner-occupied, then there's opportunities for that too. Triplexes, duplexes, maybe a quadplex if you come across one. But that can be very affordable and can help pay for your bills and stuff like that.
If I'm not mistaken, at least in New Hampshire anyway, you can have up to a 5-plex.
Okay. Without being an apartment complex?
Without it being a business, right, as an owner-occupied.
The number, and that'll keep you busy, a 5. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's a great way to, not have as much responsibility with having to have a job if you can just run some properties and, more coming up. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 15th through the 18th for the 7th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Forkfest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out in 2022. For 2023, we're going back to where it all started, the weekend before Porkfest. Forkfest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 15th through the 18th. You can find out more at the unofficial website forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 15th through the 18th. Forkfest.party.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. Do you prefer to listen to Free Talk Live on your schedule on demand? You can find the link to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, which features the daily digest of our radio show 7 days a week. Just drop our RSS feed into your favorite podcast client or subscribe to us on the large platforms if you prefer, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, and Stitcher. All the links are at feeds.freetalklive.com. If the daily digests aren't enough for you and you really don't want to miss a moment of Free Talk Live, you can always sign up for our AMPS Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com for just $5 a month, and you'll get the full radio show without recorded commercials. Plus, you'll help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join AMPS, or feeds.freetalklive.com to get our main podcast, or find us on the major podcast platforms. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live.
I just want to make sure I wasn't canceled again.
No, you're here now.
Last segment fiasco.
Good to have you, Captain. Thanks for coming in tonight.
I'm not usually here on a Wednesday, so I'm not familiar.
The number, if you want to join us, it is Free Talk Live. It's 603-283-6160. Ian, the Captain, and Nikki here in the studio tonight. Phones are open as they always are. We were talking about social media, and we can get back into that. There's a story over at MSN. It's kind of an interesting piece asking, is social media dying? Is it on the way out? Finally, after dominating the last decade plus of many of our lives.
I mean, perhaps the thing that we call social media may die at some point and be replaced with something else.
And will it be better or worse?
Well, I think that really all we're talking about is human communication, right? What has forwarded humanity over the course of history? Our ability to communicate en masse.
Yep, that's true. The printing press, of course, back in the day.
The telegraph, the telephone.
CB radio.
Radio just in general. What else?
Pretty much you get up to the internet.
Yeah, I was about to say the internet.
Everything like telephones, pagers, right? All the in-between cable television, right? That is a network in and of itself.
It is, but cable's one direction, right? Like it's we broadcast, you listen, or you watch.
Sure, so is telephone, and so is radio to that extent.
Well, not telephones, but...
Well... okay, not broadcast, but
not CB. CB, telephones.
CB can be, depending on the channel and your organization. Like if you have a whole bunch of people, you're like, hey, we're going to get on the CB on channel 24 at 6 p.m. on a Friday. You can make that happen. But
I miss those days.
Yeah,
I miss CB radio. And I got in too late. Like I got in the 90s, and it was dying.
No, I got in before that, but I wasn't really in it. What I was is I was a kid who had some parental units and some uncles and things that were in it, and so like they all had handles, and I'm like, what is that? And they're like, that's not your name. They're like, oh, it's my handle. I'm like, what's a handle? And they're like, oh, it's a nickname. I'm like,
right.
So you have a weird name that everybody calls you on the radio?
Like, and now you're Captain Kick-Ass.
Like, yeah, now I have a handle, and so like, does it have roots in CB radio? Absolutely.
Sure does.
Sure does. But it's humans communicating en masse, right? Whatever that looks like. Yep. And they've been doing it since technology has allowed. And so whatever the next thing is called, it's just going to be humans communicating en masse.
Yep, that's true. So we're digging into this a little deeper. Did you guys have anything else you want to say about real estate, though?
No, not really. I mean, I always have stuff to say about real estate, but...
I mean, no, I guess it's fine.
Let's move on. So back to MSN.com's opinion piece here written by a gentleman by the name of Ian Bogost. And he has kind of gone through some of the history. He's brought up some of the old platforms like MySpace.
I can handle like Ian reading Ian.
Too meta for you. He's gone through some of the old platforms and talked about what he says is the difference between a social network and social media. Even though they're used interchangeably, he argues they should not be. He's saying a social network is an idle, inactive system, a Rolodex of contacts, a notebook of sales targets, a yearbook of potential soulmates. But social media is active, perhaps hyperactive, spewing material across those networks instead of leaving them alone until needed. And then he talks about trying to reach a large audience with these platforms that they have now. He says a 2003 paper published in Enterprise Information Systems made an early case that drives the point home. The authors propose social media as a system in which users participate in information exchange. The network, which had previously been used to establish and maintain relationships, becomes reinterpreted as a channel through which to broadcast. Now, this was a novel concept. When News Corp, a media company, there's people that own Fox News, bought MySpace in 2005, the New York Times called the website, quote, a youth-oriented music and social networking site, complete with scare quotes around social networking. The site's primary content, music, was seen as separate from its social networking functions. Even Zuckerberg's vision for Facebook to, quote-unquote, connect every person in the world implied a networking function, not media distribution. The toxicity of social media makes it easy to forget how truly magical this innovation felt when it was new. From 2004 to 2009, you could join Facebook, and everyone you'd ever known, including people you had definitely lost track of, they were right there, ready to connect or reconnect.
I remember when you signed up for Facebook, it would ask to access your email contacts so that it could go and find
Your
everybody that you knew using their email address. And so it did two things. One, it stole your entire contact book and all your email addresses. And two, it connected you with people based on their email address only, which may or may not have been people you wanted to connect with in the first place.
But he's right about the feeling of it, right? Like, it was this really unique feeling back then of like, wow, this is pretty cool. I can get in touch with all these people who I lost their phone number or they changed their location, and I have not thought about this person in a decade plus.
There was a novel
there they
bit
are.
to it. The same thing fueled, what was that website before? Classmates.com.
Yeah, that's right.
That was that same.
It was a first crack at it, but it wasn't as useful.
Right. And so LinkedIn has a very sort of in-between Classmates and Facebook vibe to it now.
I've never been on that
I
site.
don't participate in LinkedIn. I find it way too invasive. Also, like, when I leave a job, I don't know that I want to be connected to the job that I left.
Yeah.
Right? Not necessarily because I got, if I did something nefarious or whatever, or they fired me. Like, that has nothing to do with this decision. What it has to do with is I like a clean break. Right? And I don't want to be judged upon, what other people's accomplishments may or may not have been because I just happen to be associated with them. No thanks. I'd rather be evaluated for the accomplishments I make by myself and on my own and that are provable by me.
The posts and photos I saw characterized my friends' changing lives, not the conspiracy theories their unhinged friends had shared with them. LinkedIn did the same thing with business contacts, making referrals, deal-making, and job hunting much easier than they'd been previously. I started a game studio in 2003 when LinkedIn was brand new, and I inked our first deal by working connections there. Twitter, which launched in 2006, was probably the first true social media site, even if no one called it that at the time. Instead of focusing on connecting people, the site amounted to a giant asynchronous chat room for the world. Twitter was for talking to everyone, which was perhaps one of the reasons journalists have flocked to it. Sure, a blog could technically be read by anybody with a web browser, but in practice, finding that readership was hard. That's why blogs operated first as social networks through mechanisms such as blog rolls and linkbacks.
Twitter was the evolution of IRC.
You have to define IRC for people who don't know.
Internet Relay Channel.
Chat.
Yeah. So I worked at anybody who worked in tech support in the early 2000s. They know what IRC is. It's been replaced in enterprises by things like Slack, for example, these chat applications, so you can communicate with teams and across the enterprise. And with the COVID forcing everybody to work from home, things like Slack got a whole lot more popular than they were
terrible,
previously.
by the way. Slack is awful.
They're
it's
useful
a commercial tool
in a corporate environment.
Yeah, but it's all centrally managed, and
it is.
You have to pay for it.
You do.
Oh God, it's
there
bad.
is a free version, but if you want any use out of it,
really
it's
limited.
It's very limited.
But no, I disagree with you because Twitter isn't like a chat room in any way, shape, or form. Because
when it first came out, it was.
There was no
the article you
segmenting.
just read even said it was like a giant chat room.
Well, I get the point that if you look at it as one big chat room, okay, I could see that. But IRC servers had channels, so you can't really say that Twitter was any kind of advancement over IRC. If anything, was a devolution.
Made it bigger.
But that's a problem, right? Because then there's too much noise to find the signal. Whereas at least with IRC, you could connect to a channel that you wanted to talk. If they're talking about, I don't know, Magic the Gathering or tech stuff or whatever the particular programming of that channel was, you would go in there and find people that had that similar interest. There's nothing like that on Twitter. There's just people posting the things that they want to post. There's no segment.
Well, now they kind of have threads where you can comment under a post and just keep that thread going, but that's not really.
And Twitter added algorithms, right?
Yes,
and so that's why I get the bikini fish girls, because one day I clicked on something, probably had a bikini fish girl in it, and they were like, "This guy likes bikini fish girls. We should serve him more of them." And I really didn't need that. What I needed was more Liberty content and more, that kind of a thing. But for whatever reason, it was the only thing the algorithm could latch on to.
Well, the algorithm doesn't want you to have more Liberty content. I think the way the algorithms are set now is not just what you're clicking on, what you want to see. It's also what they want you to see.
Right. The true evolution of IRC is Matrix. Matrix is a newer version of basically IRC. Essentially does whatever IRC did and adds media sharing abilities, right? So if you want to upload a audio clip with your phone's Element client that you're using, the Matrix, you can record a message and it goes off. You couldn't do that with IRC.
We could say the same about Mastodon, I guess, too. Right?
Because Mastodon's not a chat server.
No, but
Mastodon's
it does
more like a Twitter clone.
Right, but it does facilitate server instances.
There's that. They're both federated.
They are federated, but you can block whoever you want and they can block you too. And
sure,
you have to kind of know your audience to get involved with the right servers and that kind of a thing.
But as far as doing what IRC did, having a bunch of different servers interconnected, because that was federated way back in the day, by the way.
Yeah.
Mastodon does exactly that, but it adds in the ability to upload a picture or upload video. That's really the only change.
Yeah.
There's more coming up here. Free Talk Live. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The Ukrainian government says there have been widespread power cuts across the country after a series of Russian military strikes on critical energy infrastructure. Large parts of the capital Kyiv and the cities of Odessa in the Black Sea and Lviv in the west of the country are without power, and the Deputy Prime Minister of neighbouring Moldova says his country has also been affected. FSN's Sergio Olmos is on deck for us in Kyiv.
There's been power outages all throughout the city. Millions of people are out of electricity tonight. There is, in Kyiv, the capital, lack of running water. Because there is so much damage to the energy infrastructure, there is no internet in some places, there is no lights, there is no running water, and people are having to cope with that.
And of course, there is no heat in a country where winter advances every single day. Putting heat on the Russians, the European Parliament today. In a non-binding resolution, it branded Russia a state sponsor of terrorism amid reports of war crimes and attacks on civilian targets. In other news, President Biden is pledging full federal government support to the authorities in Virginia after Tuesday night's massacre in a Walmart store. An employee opened fire shortly after 10 p.m. last night, killing 6 before turning the gun on himself. Mark Zaleski is the police chief in the Virginia town of Chesapeake.
The first officers arrived on scene within 2 minutes at 10:14 and entered the store approximately 2 minutes later at 10:16, and the scene was declared safe by 11:20 p.m.
One of Europe's leading meat suppliers is to build a new £100 million factory in Britain to meet the country's surging demand for bacon. The announcement comes as surveys show the cost of living crisis is leading more people in the UK to consume pork. From FSN's London bureau, Julia Chapman with more.
The plans announced by Danish Crown Group detail a new 100% renewable energy-powered facility. UK pork consumption is now above pre-pandemic levels, with the cost of living crisis fueling demand for cheaper meats, such as sausages and bacon. On average, Britons eat over 3 kilos of bacon a year, far more than any other European country. The Danish company is keen to take advantage of the increased demand for their products in the UK. Danish Crown's investment comes amid significant challenges. Its chief executive warned that small and medium-sized companies are struggling with the added bureaucratic issues presented by Brexit. He described the crazy red tape of an additional 33,000 documents a year to trade in Britain. Julia Chapman, London.
The White House has condemned Wednesday's attacks on the outskirts of Jerusalem that killed at least 1 person and injured 14 others. Authorities in Israel suspect bombs caused explosions at 2 bus stops in the city. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Looking ahead now to Thursday's meeting of the UN Human Rights Council, which is due to address the violent unrest in Iran and reports of continuing human rights abuses by the country's security forces. Demonstrations are going into their 3rd month following the death in custody of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, arrested by the country's hated morality police for failing to wear her hijab correctly. At least 378 people, including 47 children, have been killed as the regime seeks to crack down on the dissent. That's according to the Norway-based group Iran Human Rights. Analyst Bob McMahon, with the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations, says the UN Human Rights Council meeting will be closely watched by Iranians taking to the streets.
They've lashed out in many different directions, including against ethnic minorities. Kurds have taken a lot of brunt. It's a question of what is the staying power of the protests themselves, and will it resemble ultimately the 79 protests that led to the Islamic Revolution? You're hearing very respected Iranian experts saying, hold on and watch what's going on. And I think it's events like this UN session that give sustenance to the protesters.
And that meeting will consider a resolution authored by Germany and Iceland calling for the creation of a high-level international investigation to probe atrocities committed during the protests. It is not clear whether it has sufficient backing to be adopted. The main news again, the Ukrainian government says there have been widespread power cuts across the country after a series of Russian military strikes on critical energy infrastructure. President Biden is pledging full federal government support to the authorities in Virginia after Tuesday night's massacre at a Walmart left 6 people dead plus the gunman. And the White House has condemned Wednesday's attacks on the outskirts of Jerusalem that killed at least 1 and injured 14 others. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
A local man feels even lazier when he thinks about how much ISIS has accomplished this year. A police officer doesn't see a difference between black and light-skinned black suspects. And a weak-willed termite eats a whole log in one sitting. Barreling forward on our campaign towards truth and righteousness, this is the Onion Week in Review. A new report released this week revealed that more parents than ever are relying on grandparents to help up their kids. The report's authors noted that in order to make ends meet, many budget-conscious parents in the U.S. have allowed their own parents to step in and deliver the same level of emotional neglect they would like to apply, adding that for many working adults, this arrangement was the only way to ensure their children were adequately belittled and ignored. In other news, Busch Gardens unveils their new 9,600-mile-long endurance coaster. A documentary provides a scathing indictment of the director's filmmaking skills, and a man brings his son into the office to see where dad is emasculated.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the third hour of the program. You are invited to join us. If you want, you can bring up anything that's on your mind. The number is 603-283-6160. We've been talking about the sort of phenomena of social media, where it came from, and where is it going?
I was thinking there's another name for social media that predates the CB radio even.
Really?
Coffee Clutch.
What is that? What is that?
This was the old biddies, the old ladies from like the churches.
Mm-hmm.
They would get together on a Wednesday evening or whatever for a coffee clutch. This is basically an excuse to gossip.
Yeah.
Play cards or whatever.
But that, like knitting clubs, the red
all
hats,
that kind of thing,
that's
right?
been
Yeah.
happening since the beginning of time.
Right. All of the even the male social clubs, like think of Fred Flintstone, the Elks Club, the Royal Buffalo, the Water Buffalo, right, all that kind of stuff. This is social media before the internet.
Right. Good point.
You would join these clubs to be social. Some of them
get $1 beer.
Yeah, some of them actually predate statism intervention, right? So, for example, healthcare, prior to states, claiming to have something to do with healthcare,
the Shriners,
they would have these organizations that you could join, and the organization would hire a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And pay his salary for a year.
Yeah,
and
mutual aid.
Mm-hmm. And everybody in that particular club got to call up that doctor, had his number, like he would do house calls, all that stuff. If somebody in that particular organization was sort of a hypochondriac and dominating the doctor, it was up to the organization itself to deal with it in some way, shape, or form. That could look like charging this one guy more than everybody else. That could look like putting limits on, the time that they were able to spend with a doctor, or perhaps even like telling them they couldn't be in this club and they had to go join another
hypochondriacs club
that specialized in people with that type of, desire for service, right? So it was all a very sort of a free market based thing. And ironically, the reason that went away was because these doctors petitioned government to make laws that would make it so that these types of organizations couldn't exist because they wanted to get paid more.
Well, the good news is some of that's come back in recent years. We have what's called direct primary care now.
And I love these ideas.
Very similar. Let's go to Jack. He's on the line in Ocean Shores, Washington. Jack, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about social media.
Sure.
Yeah, I haven't been calling as much because I got rid of my Twitter.
Okay.
I also got off of, I was on True Social. It's a lot of advertisements and repetitive things on Truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept my Facebook because there's too many old people and family on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I listen to you guys. But, it gets so repetitive when you see people, storming a Rite Aid, stealing everything, or someone getting beat up for no reason or punched. And it's such negative energy on your brain and your spirit. And so I've been off for about a month. That's why I haven't called as much. I don't see this stuff as often.
So you're not as incensed and you don't have anything to talk about now? Is that why you haven't called in?
I feel better just not seeing.
Yeah, sure.
Well,
that's great.
Do you, just to be clear, do you listen to us through like one of our social media broadcasts? I know that our broadcasts still show up on
your website.
Okay.
I go right to Free Talk Live, so I get all the Porcupine commercials, which I like. Mark Ward is his name.
Mark Warden.
Yeah. So I listen there, and
Wait, Jack, are you saying you only call in when you have something to say?
Yeah, just kind of like when you talk.
It's almost like that's what we're here for.
Right?
Nikki only talks when she has something to say.
Good. I'm glad, Jack, that you've disconnected from social media. It is definitely something. I remember when I quit Facebook 5 years ago now, I think at this point, that immediately I noticed the next day I had more time. I had more things I could get done in the day, and it was
you
great.
don't realize how much of a time suck it is, because even for me, I'll compulsively, and I don't do it as much anymore, but for a while I would compulsively just go to the internet browser on my phone, because I don't have the Facebook app, but I would always, once I deleted it and I signed out, I noticed myself going to it, and then I would look at the login screen.
Oh, I'm not supposed to be here.
That is what made me realize. And I didn't even know I was doing it.
Yes, it was, you were unconscious.
But I would do it several times a day, and I noticed that first day, I did it maybe 10, 15 times.
Wow. There's a name for this phenomena, too. It's the same phenomena like when you keep your phone in your pocket, and then you leave the house without your phone, but yet you feel the phone ring in your pocket, even though it's not
Ghost
there.
phone.
Whatever that phenomenon is, that's the same phenomenon that you're talking about, where you just sort of unconsciously reach for the thing, pull up the browser or the app, and you're like, oh, wait. Right, you're right. When you log out of the browser specifically, when you log out or you clear your cookies, you auto-logged out. It forces you to re-log in with whatever your username and password happens to be, and so it makes you think for a minute. Because if you just use the app on like an Android phone and you don't log out, it saves the cookie.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so then the next time you launch the browser, you're automatically logged in.
Dopamine hit.
It is.
Boom.
And it's also been tracking every other thing you've browsed since the last time you launched that page, so that's how it knows how to direct marketing towards you.
Jack?
If you guys have Apple sends you a weekly update.
Yep.
I went from 12 hours or something. I couldn't believe it, because I watch Prime Video when I sleep on my tablet. But down to 2.5 hours, and I swear I was going to get an Apple notification. Are you still alive?
Right.
12 hours.
It's like the Netflix. Are you still watching?
Congrats, Jack. Thanks for the call tonight, man. Appreciate hearing from you. The number is 603-283-6160. So he's talking about Twitter being sort of the first example of what he would call social media, as opposed to just a social network website, allowing anybody to post whatever they wanted to be seen instantly by anyone else. And furthermore, unlike posts on blogs, by the way, from MSN, or images on Flickr or videos on YouTube, tweets were short and low effort, making it easy to post many of them a week or even a day. In fact, they say that if you want to be a successful tweeter, you have to tweet 10 to 15 times a day. It's like, I just don't have that much to say.
Yeah, that much time.
I'm maybe once every few days or something like that.
Well, I think a lot of the people who are maybe tweeting that much aren't saying anything of substance. Are they making 15 heavy hitting posts
I think
a
the
day?
I think the idea is you do 15 posts a day, and maybe one of them will hit heavy, right? Maybe you'll get a share.
But it's just enough to kind of build some commotion.
A lot of what I call filler, on the Twitter. Oh, I stubbed my toe. Really, you needed to tweet
Sick.
that? I'm at a red light right now. I did not need to know that, nor did any of your followers.
He says the notion of a global town square, as Elon Musk has put it, emerges from all of these factors. On Twitter, you can instantly learn about a tsunami in Tohoku or an omakase in Topeka. This is also why journalists became so dependent on Twitter. It's a constant stream of sources, events, and reactions, a reporting automat, not to mention an outbound vector for media tastemakers to make tastes.
Automat, wow.
And I will give...
Do you know what an automat is?
Yeah, it's an old way of robotically selling food to people, right?
Basically a sandwich vending machine. Yeah.
Those things aren't really around anymore.
There's a few of them still. There's one actually still, I think, in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's got a chef behind it, right? Putting sandwiches in it. No?
No, some of them, they'll just, you go to the convenience store and you see, the sandwich cut into the triangle and it's got the package. Right. They'll just load those up, and then you got to hit the button to spin the thing around to select the flavor of sandwich you want. Then you put your money in, and
I've never been to one of these places. That's cool.
Yeah. But the original ones it was like a diner kitchen behind it with the rotating vending machine in front of it, so you didn't have to interact with a waiter or waitress or a cook or leave a tip.
Yeah, I will give credit to Twitter. When I left Facebook, I did try out Twitter. I'd already had the account, but I didn't really use it or anything. And so I do think that Twitter's better as far as, they do have an algorithm, but I feel like I do see what people post on Twitter. I feel like I generally don't get the feeling I'm having people hid from me specifically. And I do see a lot more like useful show prep. It used to be my excuse for staying on Facebook was, well, every now and then I'll find something that's useful for the show.
Facebook, like I used to say, I used to scroll Facebook specifically for show prep, and over the last year or so, it is totally useless.
It's
for
a
show
wasteland,
prep.
and it was that way 5 years ago when I left.
Well, I was still getting value out of it, but in the last year or so, it's gone.
I considered it like a needle in a haystack when I left. Finally left Facebook. It was just a huge waste of time, mostly just people fighting with one another. There's more coming up here. You can join us. The end of social media, is that happening?
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power, but there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open, and you can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
The Reverend Captain Kickass is here.
And Nikki.
And you can join us online anytime you want. Just head over to freetalklive.com. You can join our chat server. We mentioned it earlier as the sort of the newer version of Internet Relay Chat. It's called Matrix, and it is federated. You can connect to other Matrix servers remotely through our server and vice versa. Although I will say this, on our server we do have some server-exclusive channels, meaning that we don't have those channels federated. So if you want to join, say, the On Air Now channel, you do have to be a member of our server. But most of the channels, I think, are open to anybody from the outside. But check it out over at chat.freetalklive.com. You can get instructions there as to how to find our server and get on, download the right software that you need and jump through the hoops. It's a bit of a setup. It's going to take you a few minutes to download the app and get connected and create an account. But once you're good and once you're connected, it's super easy. You're always there, basically. So check it out at chat.freetalklive.com. We've been looking into the question of, is social media ending, or is the current format of it coming to a close? And that's kind of what this guy over at MSN is working up to. His name is Ian Bogost, and he has been writing kind of about the history of social media versus, say, social networking, and just kind of started talking about Twitter as the first place that was, in his opinion, the first social media place wherein that you can post content and have that content seen by some unlimited, potentially, number of people, not just your closest friends. And so he says that when we look back at this moment, social media had already arrived in spirit, if not by name. RSS readers, that's podcasts, offered a feed of blog posts to catch up on, complete with unread counts. MySpace fused music and chatter. YouTube did it with video. In 2005, at an industry conference, I remember overhearing an attendee say, "I'm so behind on my Flickr." What does that even mean? I recall wondering. But now the answer is obvious. Creating, consuming content for any reason or no reason. Social media was overtaking social networking. Instagram, launched in 2010, might have built the bridge between the social network era and the age of social media. It relied on the connections among users as a mechanism to distribute content as a primary activity. But soon enough, all social networks became social media first and foremost. When groups, pages, and the news feed launched, Facebook began encouraging users to share content published by others in order to increase engagement on the service, rather than to provide updates to friends. LinkedIn launched a program to publish content across the platform too. Twitter, already principally a publishing platform, added a dedicated retweet feature, making it far easier to spread content virally across user networks. Goes to show, I had no idea Twitter didn't have the retweet originally. Oh, it's apparently a newer thing.
Right, yeah, that's sure.
Other services arrived or evolved in this vein, among them Reddit, Snapchat, and WhatsApp, all far more popular than Twitter. Social networks, once latent routes for possible contact, became superhighways of constant content.
Isn't Reddit still a forum, technically?
You could
I
look
would
at
say
it that
so,
way.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
it behaves that way.
It's a rudimentary kind of forum, right? I mean, it's a very large forum, I guess you could say, but there's no sub-forums underneath. Once you join a Reddit, you're in that Reddit, and there's no, subtopics.
It's all sub-forums of Reddit, right? It's Reddit / r/whatever.
Unfortunately, it's dominated by the woke left, and, really also a very intolerant place to be. In their latest phase, the social networking aspects have been pushed deep into the background. Although you can connect to the app or connect the app to your contacts and follow specific users on TikTok, you're more likely to simply plug into a continuous flow of video content that is oozed to the surface via algorithm. And this goes back to what you were saying earlier, Nikki, about, I think the term was the TikTok black hole.
Yeah.
Where people who will literally just blow hours of their lives away.
It's a total time suck.
And not realize it, just watching videos.
And you know what? My big issue with TikTok is being in the same room as someone that's scrolling on TikTok is the most annoying thing ever. Because it's all the stupid songs and the sound effects, and I'm just like watching someone from the outside in. I'm just wondering the psychology behind it of how somebody can sit there and watch them and not be driven crazy.
And how many times do they watch the same video over again? Because don't they loop?
Sometimes, yeah.
Don't they loop?
Yeah, they do loop. So sometimes people will watch them a few times. And
that drives me nuts. Just the looping.
Over and over again, yeah.
I just wonder, like, when you sit inside of a bar, right, or some social gathering, right, if you go to like a church youth group or something like that, and everybody's on their phones, right?
Yeah.
I just wonder how long it's going to be before, in order for that particular group to notice something happening around them where it happens on their phone.
The bar's on fire.
Yeah, where it happens on their phone before they realize, right? Like before social media, if you were in a bar and a fire started, some guy would be like, hey guys, there's a fire in the kitchen. Everybody would look, see the fire, and head for the exits, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's going to come a time, it may be here already, where people are sitting in a bar and instead of noticing or somebody yelling, they're going to get a thing on their phone. Bing, hey, the bar you're in is on fire. You should
Reports
go.
say.
And you'd be like, oh crap, I better go.
But connection to a primary purpose has declined. Think of the change like this. In the social networking era, the connections were essential, driving both content creation and consumption. But the social media era seeks the thinnest, most soluble connections possible, just enough to allow the content to flow. Social networks' evolution into social media brought both opportunity and calamity. Facebook and all of the rest enjoyed a massive rise in engagement, and the associated data-driven advertising profits the attention-driven content economy created. The same phenomenon also created the influencer economy, in which individual social media users became valuable as channels for distributing marketing messages or product sponsorships by means of their posts' real or imagined reach.
What would be great, in my opinion, is if the same method that finds somebody known today as a social media influencer was used to find like a social arbiter. Right, so in the absence of state, so like the Irish, when they had a basically stateless society for 1,000 to 3,000 years, depending on how you do the history on it. If there was a dispute amongst a community or in between two different communities, they would go and find sort of like a respected, smart elder within the community, right? You could call him an influencer. They called them tuatha, right? And so they would get together. Maybe the other community had one, and so the two tuathas would get together and be like, "Hey, there's a dispute about property, or there's a dispute about a deal that you made, an agreement, or whatever." And they would try and find a way to both bring justice if somebody was wronged, or make the situation right in the eyes of the people who were involved. And that was sort of how disputes were handled. And it would be great if something like that could happen via social media, where instead of influencers being glorified marketers, they could be, sort of philosophers, arbiters, right? People who help you solve problems in life, respected people that communities sort of looked up to for, guidance in certain situations.
Instead, you got Kim Kardashian pimping an Ethereum token called Ethereum Max, which she's, by the way, been fined now by the SEC for that.
Yeah.
Yikes.
And then another question about these influencers is, are they as influential as they would like you to believe?
No.
That's a good question.
And that's what I've heard, is that, if you advertise something with an influencer, you don't get the kind of return that you would think you would get, because 1 million so-called followers isn't as, useful as you would think that it is. There's more coming up here.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The Ukrainian government says there have been widespread power cuts across the country after a series of Russian military strikes on critical energy infrastructure. Large parts of the capital Kyiv and the cities of Odessa in the Black Sea and Lviv in the west of the country are without power, and the Deputy Prime Minister of neighbouring Moldova says his country has also been affected. FSN's Sergio Olmos is on deck for us in Kyiv.
There's been power outages all throughout the city. Millions of people are out of electricity tonight. There is, in Kyiv, the capital, a lack of running water. Because there is so much damage to the energy infrastructure, there is no internet in some places, there is no lights, there is no running water, and people are having to cope with that.
And of course, there is no heat in a country where winter advances every single day. Putting heat on the Russians, the European Parliament today. In a non-binding resolution, it branded Russia a state sponsor of terrorism amid reports of war crimes and attacks on civilian targets. In other news, President Biden is pledging full federal government support to the authorities in Virginia after Tuesday night's massacre in a Walmart store. An employee opened fire shortly after 10 p.m. last night, killing 6 before turning the gun on himself. Mark Zaleski is the police chief in the Virginia town of Chesapeake.
The first officers arrived on scene within 2 minutes at 10:14 and entered the store approximately 2 minutes later at 10:16, and the scene was declared safe by 11:20 p.m.
One of Europe's leading meat suppliers is to build a new £100 million factory in Britain to meet the country's surging demand for bacon. The announcement comes as surveys show the cost of living crisis is leading more people in the UK to consume pork. From FSN's London bureau, Julia Chapman with more.
The plans announced by Danish Crown Group detail a new 100% renewable energy-powered facility. UK pork consumption is now above pre-pandemic levels, with the cost of living crisis fueling demand for cheaper meats, such as sausages and bacon. On average, Britons eat over 3 kilos of bacon a year, far more than any other European country. The Danish company is keen to take advantage of the increased demand for their products in the UK. Danish Crown's investment comes amid significant challenges. Its chief executive warned that small and medium-sized companies are struggling with the added bureaucratic issues presented by Brexit. He described the crazy red tape of an additional 33,000 documents a year to trade in Britain. Julia Chapman, London.
The White House has condemned Wednesday's attacks on the outskirts of Jerusalem that killed at least 1 person and injured 14 others. Authorities in Israel suspect bombs caused explosions at 2 bus stops in the city. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. The phones are open, and you can join us here.
In a world, in a time, in a place, on a station.
In a social media world, that's what we're talking about. Throughout the show tonight, it's been the overarching discussion on the changes in the world of social media.
At some point, one of the bands that I was in, sort of between the MySpace and Facebook era, whenever everybody had mass exodus, we rebranded our MySpace and our Facebook with the South Park butt faces.
Okay,
if you remember the South Park episode where they just replaced everybody's face with a butt.
Sounds like something they would do.
And we declared it our anti-social media network.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I've got an anti-terms of service on the social media site for Free Talk Live.
It's like the BIPCOT license, right? The old Michael Dean thing, right?
Yeah, so check it out at social.freetalklive.com. The article here is from MSN. It's an opinion piece basically arguing that social media is on the decline. And it is from Ian Bogost, as he is talking about the transition from what he calls social networking to social media, and he's now getting into sort of the last decade, looking at the sort of the more recent development of the concept of the influencer. somebody who has, whether they're, were a star previously. Obviously, it's easier for somebody like Kanye West to become a social media influencer. He's got sort of a built-in following.
Well, I think typically when they talk about influencers specifically, they're typically people that were not previously famous.
I think you're right
They're
about that.
people that somehow got famous from being like hot on Instagram or something.
Yeah, they dance to music and they're pretty or whatever. And now that's what he says here. Ordinary folk can now make money or even a lucrative living, quote unquote, creating content online. The platform sold them that on a promise, creating official programs and mechanisms to facilitate it. In turn, influencer became an aspirational role, especially for young people for whom Instagram fame seemed more achievable than traditional celebrity or perhaps employment of any kind. And, I got to give these people credit. It's kind of like, it reminds me of what happened with this Twitch phenomenon, where sort of the same thing happened, where video game geeks are actually getting paid to play video games now. This was the old dream of ours in the 1990s. Growing up in the 90s and the 80s was like, man, can you imagine if we could get paid to play video games? It's like, no one ever thought that would be possible. And then 20 years later,
I mean,
it's
some
happening.
of these people are making a lot of money on Twitch and all the other streaming.
This author is kind of interesting. I just looked him up.
Bogost?
Ian Bogost is an American academic and video game designer.
Oh, interesting.
He holds a joint professorship at Washington University as director and professor of the Film and Media Studies program in Arts and Sciences and the McKelvey School of Engineering. He previously held a joint professorship in the School of Literature, Media, and Communication in Interactive Computing in the College of Computing at the Georgia Institute of Technology, where he was the Ivan Allen College of Liberal Arts Distinguished Chair.
So he's qualified to have an to have computer things.
Sometimes people write things and you find them interesting, and you want to look at who are they and how did they arrive at these opinions.
So I mean, to the credit of these influencers, whether they quote unquote deserve the attention they've received or not, they've gotten it, right? Yeah. Some teenage girl or whatever can become a 10 million follower influencer, not quite overnight, but close enough. Yeah. And then that person is more popular than a lot of actual celebrities who are in movies and things like that.
Right. And there's more of like a personable aspect to it. And a lot of those, the people who have gotten money off of making YouTube videos. You feel, when people vlog or when they post on their Instagram stories, or it's so much more personable than it is with, like music artists or,
it's the illusion
actors
of it.
And stuff.
It's the illusion of that, right?
I mean, you don't really know their life, but based on what they're sharing on social media, it does feel like, oh, wow, like I'm seeing what they're eating for breakfast and them going to the gym and walking their dog. It feels like you're in their life with them, but it's really only bits and pieces of it, of course.
And Marketing 101 now, right, in today's age, will tell you all of those things you just said, that you can't just, like as a musical artist, you can't just make an audio recording and put that out. You're not going to be successful.
Promote
it's not going to happen. Not only do you have to promote it, but you also have to do the social media thing where you are including things that at least, if it's not a peek into your everyday life, it at least gives your fans the illusion that it's a peek into your everyday life. Things like walking your dog, having a sandwich, going to a concert, whatever it is. That is a necessary component nowadays of successful social media marketing.
Absolutely. And when you own a business, people like to follow people. People don't like to follow businesses.
That's true.
So, an important technique that I've learned through marketing, through social media, is you have to present yourself as the person behind the business, where sometimes people, it could be more successful in certain industries to drop your business name and flaunt your real name more and kind of have the business name on the back burner.
Think about what Wendy's did with Dave Thomas.
Right.
So he became the face, even though Wendy's is a girl as an icon.
Yeah.
Her dad or whatever, the manager, Dave Thomas, became the public face of Wendy's, and people kind of quote unquote got to know him over the years. He was this friendly character. So they say here the ensuing disaster was multi-part. For one, social media operators discovered that the more emotionally charged the content, the better it spread across the networks. Polarizing, offensive, or just plain fraudulent information was optimized for distribution. By the time the platforms realized and the public revolted, it was too late to turn off these feedback loops. Obsession fueled the flames. Compulsion had always plagued computer-facilitated social networking. It was the original sin. Rounding up friends or business contacts into a pen in your online profile for possible future use was never a healthy way to understand social relationships. It was just as common to obsess over having 500-plus connections on LinkedIn in 2003 as it is to covet Instagram followers today. But when social networking evolved into social media, user expectations escalated, driven by venture capitalists' expectations and then Wall Street's demands, and tech companies, Google and Facebook and all the rest became addictive to massive scale. As the values associated with scale, reaching a lot of people easily and cheaply, and reaping the benefits became appealing to everyone. A journalist earning reputational capital on Twitter, a 20-something seeking sponsorship on Instagram, a dissident spreading the word of their cause on YouTube, an insurrectionist sowing rebellion on Facebook, an autopornographer selling sex or its image on OnlyFans, a self-styled guru hawking advice on LinkedIn. Social media showed that everyone has the potential to reach a massive audience at low cost and high gain. And that potential gave many people the impression that they deserve such an audience. The flip side of that coin also shines on social media. Everyone believes that anyone to whom they have access owes them an audience. A writer who posted a take, a celebrity who announced a project, a pretty girl just trying to live her life, the anon who said something afflictive. When network connections become activated for any reason or no reason, then every connection seems worthy of traversing. That was a terrible idea, he says. As I've written on this subject before, people just aren't meant to talk to one another this much. They shouldn't have that much to say. They shouldn't expect to receive such a large audience for that expression, and they shouldn't suppose a right to comment or rejoinder for every thought or notion either. Now, that's a pretty controversial opinion.
I don't know that I agree with that.
I don't either.
Some people are just gifted orators. Mm-hmm. Right? They just have, you just want to listen to them, right? They can make a YouTube video that's an hour and a half long, and if you get, you click play, and for whatever reason, whatever they're talking about or the way they say it is attractive to you, and you just sit there and you watch it, and and you meet these people in your everyday life too. You could be out at a social event, a concert, a bar, whatever, and some guy's just carrying on, and you're like, well, this guy's got a compelling thing to say. He's talking about something I'm interested in.
Sure.
And so you pay attention to it. I don't think that you can narrow it down the way this author has.
I kind of agree with bits and pieces of what he's saying towards the end, where people aren't really meant to be on social media this much or to post this much. It seems, I don't know, like what did we do before social media, right? Like people would watch movies, read a book.
Mm-hmm.
Reading the book is the big thing, and I noticed
Join a club.
Yeah, do real things.
Go out in the real world.
Exactly.
Converse
so it
with
seems
actual individuals.
Like some people, all they're doing is whatever they're doing on social media instead of learning, growing, communicating in real life.
Yeah,
it's kind of negative.
I'm kind of with you on this one, Nikki, that I feel like what he's saying here is kind of a mixed bag as far as my agreement. We'll continue with the discussion because it is an interesting viewpoint. Are people saying too much? Is social media encouraging that? Is that unhealthy? This is Free Talk Live.
Hi, I'm Montel Williams. Most of you know me as a talk show host, but I'm also an author, actor, single father of 4, a fitness writer, avid snowboarder, and I'm also a medical marijuana patient. Like many of the million people who are living with multiple sclerosis, I'm in pain every single day. And sometimes my nerves are so raw that if you brushed up against me in an elevator, I'd scream. I can't sleep at night from the pain, and sometimes the spasms in my legs are so intense they will wake me up throughout the night. I've tried the strongest prescription medications available, and I'm going to tell you, they do not work. In fact, they leave me in a stupor, and most of the time, it's impossible to even live your life. Now, I've tried medical marijuana, and I'm going to tell you something, it works. If you'd like more information about medical marijuana, you can contact the Marijuana Policy Project at mpp.org or call 1-877-JOIN-MPP.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at MyMagicMud.com. FTL20, MyMagicMud.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone? You forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection, you can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, phones open. In the remaining moments here, you want to weigh in on social media. We're getting to the point in this story which he's finally getting to some opinions, right? And he's been kind of laying out the history of social media, and he's been opinionated about what is and what is not social media. But now he's talking about, like, what people should be doing, whether or not, their usage is healthy, that kind of thing. With you tonight, it is Ian.
The Reverend Captain Kickass is here.
And Nikki.
And you can join us over at freetalklive.com. You can grab our feeds. We've got RSS feeds for the show. There's the daily digest that you can easily access over at feeds.freetalklive.com. Every day you get the hour-long cut of what our guy Riley Blake says is the best parts of the show. If that's not enough for you, we do have options to where you can listen to the whole show without edits or with the commercials, however you want it. There's different options. Just go to feeds.freetalklive.com and you can link over to all that stuff there. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. But I want to talk about this guy's opinion here where he says people aren't meant to talk to one another this much. They shouldn't have that much to say. They shouldn't expect to receive such a large audience for that expression, and they shouldn't suppose a right to comment or rejoinder for every thought or notion either. So what I have to say about this is I feel like he's kind of right and wrong about this. People obviously have a lot to say,
yes,
right? Like people have opinions about everything, and they have the ability now to express those opinions in a way that they never did before, and that's not a bad thing per se.
And it's not new either. People just did it face to face before,
right? And now they can reach more people. But I think that's where the unhealthy part comes in. And he touches on this, that they feel like they have a right to somebody seeing that opinion, and they get upset if they don't get enough likes or they don't get enough retweets or they don't get enough spread of that opinion. And then you get people that are kind of hunting for that. Like, ooh, I'm going to have this opinion because it might get me more likes, or it might get me more attention, or I might get more followers. There's just kind of this chase going on where that I feel like there's some unhealthy aspect to.
Well, because it's being inauthentic. If you're going to share a message, just say what you actually believe and what you want to say. But when you get people who have a certain opinion just because they want more followers or because they want attention, that is so toxic, because then their followers think that they have. It's just like this endless cycle of people lying and pretending. I mean, we probably saw it with all the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people who were like, yeah, get your booster. Yeah, wear your masks. But in real life, they were like, oh, I'm sick of all this. But they were afraid to say that.
This reminds me, like, I keep drawing parallels between analog things of this nature. And the one thing I keep thinking of is like a church, right? So it used to be, before the internet, maybe even before the state, that if you moved to a new community or something, or the digital equivalent would be join a new platform, right?
Yeah.
You move to a new community.
You go to the church, you meet people.
You go to the church, you meet people. You're like, hey, I do this kind of a business. They help you out. They send you leads. Oh, yeah, Bob needs some new whatever it is you're pimping. And, you sort of integrate yourself. But now, do you feel like you have like a captive audience now that you're part of the church, and you're chummy with the reverend, and you can like sort of use that as your platform to advertise your business and service because you're part of this club or whatever, this platform? Like I just feel like there's analogies all over the place between like a social media platform and a congregation in a church. Like, it's just, one is the digital equivalent, much larger, obviously, because it's at scale now, but I don't feel like they're very different from each other.
Well, they're not very different, but it's a little unnatural. So when you move somewhere and you go to the church or wherever and you meet people, those are people in your local community. But on social media, you just have so much of an outreach where that aspect of it, especially in marketing standpoint, it's a little unnatural.
I mean, you are exceeding the Dunbar number in ways, but like even within that, you're not exceeding it like very much. There's still, I think that there's an argument to be made that there is sort of an internet Dunbar number, and that is to say, I don't care how many followers you have on whatever platform, you're only going to reach X amount of people, or in any given period of time, over a week or a day or whatever that is, whatever it is you're trying to pimp or put out there. You're only going to reach a certain amount of people. Certainly, it's a greater number of people that you can potentially reach on social media than by joining a local club or joining a church or something like that. But I just feel like it's technology doing what technology does, making things a little bit bigger. Humankind is the one that has to adjust to the technology. The technology is just going to be the technology. What humans do with it is largely up to us.
From being asked to review every product you buy to believing that every tweet or Instagram image warrants likes or comments or follows, social media produced a positively unhinged sociopathic rendition of human sociality. That's no surprise, I guess, given the model was forged by the fires of big tech companies such as Facebook, where sociopathy is a design philosophy. If Twitter does fail, either because its revenue collapses or because the massive debt that Musk's deal imposes crushes it, the result could help accelerate social media's decline more generally. It would also be tragic for those who have come to rely on these platforms for news or community or conversation or mere compulsion. Such is the hypocrisy of this moment. The rush of likes and shares felt so good because the age of zero comments felt so lonely, and upscaling killed the alternatives a long time ago besides. If change is possible, carrying it out will be difficult because we've adapted our lives to conform to social media's pleasures and torments. It's seemingly as hard to give up on social media as it was to give up smoking en masse like Americans did in the 20th century. And you were just talking about that a moment ago, Nikki, and I experienced it as well. When I left Facebook, I would find myself not so much with the app, because like you, I had already, like 2 years before, gotten rid of the app. That was sort of my first step to getting rid of Facebook, sort of weaning myself off of its addictions. But I would go on my laptop, I would find myself subconsciously, unconsciously, just going to the URL area and just starting to type in FACE, and I would catch myself doing it, like, oh my God, I'm not even on this website anymore.
It's creepy because you don't even realize you're doing it, and it's kind of just like, oh, I'm bored. My brain is bored.
That's
for
what
literally
it is.
1 second. All it takes is 1 second, and it's like it's literally like being addicted to drugs.
For a point of reference, if you haven't seen the Black Mirror episode called Nosedive, this is all about social media and its impact on the world today. It is a fantastic episode, and I think it speaks to this subject very well tonight.
He says quitting the habit took decades, talking about smoking, of regulatory intervention, public relations campaigning, social shaming, and aesthetic shifts. At a cultural level, we didn't stop smoking just because the habit was unpleasant or uncool, or even because it might kill us. We did so slowly and over time by forcing social life to suffocate the practice.
Nobody quit smoking, really. I mean, like, people still smoke.
They just go outside.
Yeah. Like, he's equating passing a law.
Smoking's down.
Absolutely.
Okay, but like, it's still around.
It is.
People
for sure.
haven't quit. It's
but
still
it's not
a
like
$1 industry.
Something may yet survive in the fire that would burn it down. Social networks, the services overlooked molten core. It was never a terrible idea, at least, to use computers to connect one another on occasion for justified reasons and in moderation. The problem came from doing so all the time as a lifestyle, an aspiration, an obsession. The offer was always too good to be true, but it's taken us 2 decades to realize the Faustian nature of the bargain. Someday, eventually, perhaps its web will unwind, but not soon and not easily. So finally, he says, a year ago, when I first wrote about the downscale, the ambition seemed necessary but impossible. It still feels unlikely, but perhaps newly plausible. That's a victory, if a small one, so long as the withdrawal doesn't drive us back to the addiction. To win the soul of social life, we must learn to muzzle it again across the globe among billions of people, to speak less to fewer people and less often, and for them to do the same to you and everyone else as well. We cannot make social media good because it is fundamentally bad, deep in its very structure.
No, this is getting weird.
All we can do is hope that it withers away and play our small part in helping abandon
I would make
it.
that argument about the state, right?
Absolutely.
You cannot make the state good because it is fundamentally bad.
Yeah.
But social media, that's
No.
all about choice.
And that's the thing, like you were mentioning earlier, Captain. It's a tool. It's technology. Do what you will with it.
Mhm.
It's not inherently bad. It's not even, it's not a living being. It's just technology. It's just a tool.
That's true.
You can do a lot of positive things on social media.
Yeah.
You can spread a good message. You can learn about things. Or you can fight with people on Facebook, and
Right.
you can
Endlessly.
watch a bunch of negative stuff and, or mindlessly scrolling. But it can and has the ability to be a very positive thing.
I think that comes to the individual's choices, right? Like,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
can curate your experience to some extent.
Right.
If there's somebody who's triggering you and making you angry in some way or whatever, you can just disconnect from that person. You can
Yep.
block that person. You can
Take
use the
personal
tools.
responsibility
Right.
for
Exactly.
what you do.
That said, I do disagree with him that people should quiet down or whatever. I don't think that's the solution. But I also do agree that there is a lot of content and a lot of it is unnecessary, and that maybe tweeting less often but with higher quality isn't a bad idea.
I like it.
But ultimately, as you guys say, this is all about choice. And what will people choose with the future of social media? We are out of time for tonight, but we're back tomorrow for the live Thanksgiving Day episode, and we'll see you online in the meantime at freetalklive.com. See you then. Gold and silver. You can own the most stable assets in recorded history with BullionMax.com. Buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals shipped fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live can get you their silver starter kit at employee pricing. Just go to BullionMax.com/FTL. It includes 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products plus a free gold back. This offer is limited to 1 per household, so get yours now. Go to BullionMax.com/FTL.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Have you had enough of the big name web hosting service?